Hello. Hey, everybody. All, however many of you are in here, because I can't tell. Looking stuff up. That's not what I want. Where's the thing that I want? You're the thing. Okay, it's in there. Guess I should find like a thing to do in the meantime. Also, is my sound work? Yeah. Yeah. Let's do a little audio check for myself then. What did I just click? Eh. Effortful. Oh, no worries. Good thing it's working. How's my audio? Monitor. Yeah, so how do I sound to myself? Yeah, pretty good, I think. We'll keep that. Video working. And then cool. Yeah, so I'm treating this as a, well, first of all, I have to figure out where you were even at. Good. Good to know. Oh, why is this like so low? First of all, I have to figure out where like you're at with, or what you're even like looking for. Um, I guess it just has like more space than potentially needs to, this little chat thing. We'll do it like these. Yeah, so what are you looking to learn or, I don't know, get out of it? Or where are you at, I guess, artistically? All of this and more today on the live stream. Because if it's just drawing, which is my default expectation, then I've already got like some things to kind of like set up and show you here. But if it's something more specific, job wise or aspirational, like if you want to get into comics or if you want to get into animation, then I can talk more specifically about that. Anatomy, I still struggle sometimes with that. Usually look at references or use my hand as reference. This is kind of like cutting off your text over here. But not over there, but then that one go away. Usually look for a reference to use my hand as reference. Thanks. So I guess the other question is like, where are you at? So presumably then you're trying to get better at just drawing and art. So where would you say you're at artistically? What kind of education have you had, or what's your years of doing? Cool. So one thing I do want to point out to you, but to people. Oh, I should specify for like your purposes really that like my intention. Oh, these glasses just broke. I felt them break. Okay, they're just uncoupled. The screw is fuckered. Anyways, we'll deal with that later. Um, cool. Great. Yeah, self-taught is absolutely fine. That's, I think, most people's way about getting to it, actually. But before I get like too far into it, what I'm gonna frame the stream as, I guess, is like whatever I can utilize to help you, I'm gonna try to frame it in a way that it can become like a tidbit of information for like anyone to use, let's say, right? The like usability for anyone. So though it's going to be aimed at you and like for your purposes and intent, like exactly what you need, like whatever you want me to kind of explain for you, I am going to be framing it in like a general sense for anyone. Oh, get back down here, camera. Get over here. So with that being said, get back down here. Get over here. I thought I didn't have my AI tracking on, and apparently I do. Yo, stop it. Get over here. Get over here. Here. Stop. So the first, oh, it's because it's flipped. That's why it's like driving me crazy. So in regards to reference, it seems like you're saying you're aiming for like not using reference, but let me put it to you this way. I don't know where this like idea comes from where like reference is bad or taboo for artists. Reference is always what you're going to use, like at a professional level, at a learning level, you're always going to be using reference to some degree, right? Obviously, it would be helpful if you didn't have reference because then you don't have to like look things up and what have you, and so you'd be a faster artist, let's say, you know, a worker, faster worker. And ultimately, like that is the goal, but you're always going to be using reference. Like in my professional career as an artist and animator, like I'm always going to use reference because there's just going to be something new that you're going to find that's going to expand what you know and your capabilities. Because if you're only ever trying to draw what you know, then you're never going to learn anything new. So even at like a kind of forever education level, you know, you as a human being are always going to be learning and growing. You're always going to want to use reference, right? So even at that level, it's like, oh, I know how to draw a hand. And today I'm just trying to get this job done, let's say. Then you might use your experience. But more often than not, you're going to be like, oh, I don't know this particular angle, or I'm looking for something more complicated, or I'm trying to push myself as an artist. And I think that's fair and good. You should always be trying to push yourself as an artist. So, yeah. So the taboo of like, I'm using reference, but I'm trying to not use reference, like get that idea out of your head, essentially. Always be using reference, especially I presume at like, you know, at an educational level, like in your early days, I'm kind of like subscribing that you're in your early days of like art education, use reference all the time. In fact, always be drawing from life as much as possible. Yeah. So let me like write that down sort of. Reference good. Because people are very much like, I heard this a lot with students in the past, is like, oh, I'm trying to not use reference. Oh, but they used reference for this. And so somehow, you know, the work that they put in isn't good anymore. Everything's going to use reference. No. Must be like this. Reference good. I'm just gonna put exclamation point because I was gonna be like question mark. No, reference good. We want reference. So for instance, so I just did this kind of painting this week, I guess, which is like some art that I'm gonna put on a business card to just kind of showcase, hey, I can do the art, you know? And also I just wanted to do stuff. But this largely comes from, and I don't know that I have it in here, but this largely comes from an old Polaroid photo of me as a kid at a gas station. And there's a lot of change I did. For instance, obviously I don't have like this fisheye lens warp effect. There wasn't a bike, and there's things I'm including because like art. But this original idea and like the color scheme, what have you, came originally from that Polaroid. So use reference. I very much recommend that. So this was like a color exploration initially, the old photos. So this was the original photo. I don't know how much like that tracks, but like this was the original thing I was going with. And this is what it ended up being. But even before it became that, I made it, I don't know if I have like the original kind of thing in here anymore. I basically did like a draw over of that exact card, but you know, I took artistic liberties of reusing this kind of red wherever there was red, and making sure there was like more of a stable palette and these kinds of things. Just like artistic choices that I would have personally wanted. But all of that to say, reference good. So, you know, I think I'll leave it at that for the sake of, you know, getting the idea across. Where's my little thingy? I am spelling reference wrong. It's going to stay on screen. I don't want it to be wrong. My handwriting is pretty crap today. Let's use the calligraphy brush. So, like, in case people were asking, this is Clip Studio Paint. Thanks. I suck at digital art. I've always felt more comfortable and found it easier to do traditional art, so seeing those who put so much detail into their digital artwork never fails to impress me. A lot of that's interesting that you put it, you frame kind of digital art as being harder. It definitely has a learning curve because you're learning a whole new program, right? When you're learning like traditional art, it's really, you know, it's not different. Think, I don't know what medias you know how to use in traditional art, but you know, if you weren't familiar with, let's say, watercolor or markers, right? Imagine the first time you were using markers and you're like, oh, I don't, oh, this bleeds when this happens. Oh, I don't know this. And it's a learning curve, right? And it takes time and experimentation and like the willingness to take risks to get past that learning curve, because at first you suck. That's just going to be the truth of anything that you learn. At the beginning of anything you learn, you're going to be bad at that thing. And you have to have a willingness to accept that and get over that hurdle, get past it. And so in the beginnings of, like, say, learning digital art, it's going to be like when you first picked up a marker. I'm using marker as, you know, I just don't know another media per se. This thing is turned off again, hesitant. I gotta turn off that auto. Stop it. Huh. It's because this camera has like face tracking, but it just like turns on randomly. Well, it turns on with a specific thing. Maybe if I do this so that it shuts up about it. Okay, go away. So I'm using markers as an example for you use IBIS Paint for drawing digitally. I never really color my traditional art, and I've been told I should, but I find it hard. But I tried a few days ago and I'm proud of it. Great. I don't know what the like no worries part is in reference to now, because I'm like it's back and forth in like the timeline of what we're talking about. But yeah, so always use reference, and the start of anything will always be difficult. So when you're doing like, so when you were using IBIS Paint for the first time, you were probably like, what the hell? And you're like, what does this button do? What does this do? What does this do? And you have to just kind of like experiment and try things for a while, and who knows when Oh, for the camera, yeah, yeah. You have to just like experiment and try things for a while. That's going to be true for any program. For instance, I'm not a Clip Studio aficionado. I started using this month at the earliest, latest, or however you want to put it. But I've only just started using Clip Studio Paint. I've always used like the Adobe line of things. Adobe, what is called Animate now, but used to be called Flash or Macromedia Flash, even back when I first started using it. And Photoshop and whatnot. I literally have Photoshop open here where I was experimenting with some logo designs for myself and branding issues because I was doing the card designs and whatnot. So like as an artist, you're kind of expected to like try like that hip new thing. You're always like, hey, try that new thing. So it seems to me that like Procreate is very much the in thing right now because it's not subscription based. Clip Studio Paint is subscription based, but it does have the option to fully buy it. But obviously, that's like a big lump sum and whatever. But I think it's like for their most expensive version, it's like $17 a month, which you should need as somebody learning. The reason to buy the more expensive version is because it gives you the ability to animate and make like webtoons and comics, which is something that like I do animation and I want to do comics, so I'm trying the full version of it. But the cheaper version is like $10 or less, I think, a month, and then you can buy it outright if you would like. But all that to say is like there's a learning curve to everything. You just kind of accept that you're going to be bad at things to start, and you don't get too stuck on that concept, and keep moving on, keep moving forward, keep trucking, as they say, right? Keep working on it, and then you'll eventually get good. But it's that's the biggest hurdle to make in art specifically, but in learning anything, is getting over that hurdle of, oh man, this isn't what I wanted it to be. And your mindset right now of, but I like it, I'm really proud of it, is actually fantastic, right? I really want you to like hone in on that. Like, this makes me happy, I'm proud of it, and I want to continue. That's the main thing. I actually have like a note of it in this file. I sort of like put some notes together to structure this a little bit, so I'm not just, I have a tendency to rant. But you're your father's daughter, so I'm assuming you're used to it. So I can only apologize because we're not dissimilar. I want to say like I'm a little bit less talky than him, but like it's there. So anyways, yeah, that mindset of, oh, this isn't what I wanted it to be, oh, I'm not good enough, is to be honest, like always gonna be there to some degree. And if you can get over that, that's amazing. You're going to do really well if you can get past that idea or concept of, hey, I'm not good enough. Because as an artist, we're constantly like, this is where I want to be. You see the art that you want to be producing, and you're like, I want to do that. And it's a situation of, if you've heard the phrase, your eyes were hungrier than your stomach, where you're like at a restaurant or what have you, and you're like, oh, I want that, I want that, I want that. And then you're like, oh, I ate too much. It's sort of like that in for art, in that you will see, I don't know, K-pop Demon Hunters or Arcane and go, I want to produce that. And then you do whatever you can do, and then you're like, it isn't that. Because what we want to be able to produce is usually that, because we can't produce it. You know what I mean? We aspire for greatness. We aspire for that thing. But like the reason why we like it is because we can't actually get there ourselves, more likely than not. And therefore, that discrepancy hurts our feelings. And so that's just like, that's the fight of being an artist. So if you can get past that, that's amazing. Now, anyways, I'm gonna like get off of my soapbox a little bit here, but it's an important soapbox to be fair. Um, to like your own work and to enjoy what you're doing is I can't stress it enough, like the most important thing that you could be doing for yourself as an artist. Like what you're doing and keep going. No one wants anime drawings, but it's not anime, it's an art style. And I tend to be inconsistent with my art style, but I try. I do love drawing eyes a specific way though. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the hate for anime still exists, but I want to say less so now, because we see the success of anime, frankly. But things that are like anime adjacent, where it's like, here's a hit Netflix movie, here's like another hit, theatrical release movie, and it's at least like partially anime inspired. So the statistics basically are just there, and there's kind of like no disputing it. However, the main reason why people might be saying, "Hey, don't do anime," and like if this is the reason, then I agree with it, and like let me like finish the idea. Is you shouldn't be necessarily jumping to an art style first. This is why I say, like, always be drawing and always be drawing from life as much as possible. Because when you draw anime, when you draw any style, you're sort of jumping the gun, and not understanding why that artist made that stylistic choice, right? So in one sense, it makes you draw better faster because you're mimicking an accomplished artist, but you've neglected, or like don't know why they've gone to that point, right? So like they're here, let's say, and they draw eyes a certain way. And when you recreate that eye, you know how to draw that eye in one angle and that one specific emotion and like, but you don't know why they've made the choices of like, why those lines, why this thickness, why these colors. You just know that they did it, but you don't know why. So that's why I always draw from life. And to fast track yourself, you can absolutely learn from other styles, right? It makes you excel in your artistic ability, like leaps and bounds, like decades of time saving, essentially, right? By using the reference of a finished artwork to create your artwork will just be better. But the learning might, there are sacrifices in the learning, let's say. So definitely do the mimicking, but what I want to like focus on is the like fundamentals. So like do that, leaps and bounds of learning, always great, but let's try to bridge that gap of fundamentals. Could you explain and show what exactly are life drawings? I will get to that. That is a thing. And so life drawings, when people say life drawings, what they mean is figure drawing. And just to kind of like jump the gun a bit on that, what do I have? I thought I have open. He's open, yes. It's open over here. So you can use this. What? Oh, it says my chat died in my app. But anyways, you can use this. So I might not get your response, but for a while. So you can use this. It's called Line of Action. But if you literally Google life drawing online, I think it will have this come up. And like if I go backwards, I think it literally just goes to me Googling it, life drawing online, and then you get it. There's a few other ones, I think, and there's even like YouTube channels that effectively do it. It's just like one model doing poses, right? And they'll do a pose and then they will stand there for however long, and you draw them, right? That's all life drawing is. But as an extension, sometimes life drawing will mean still life drawing, like still lifes, which will be like, here's a table with some flowers and fruits on it, and draw or paint it. So ultimately, it's just studies of life. You know, there's a literal thing there, draw it or paint it or what have you to the best of your ability. That's all life drawing is. It's the study of life. But it tends to more often mean figure drawing, right? Like I looked up life drawing and it gave me this app, and this app gives you figure drawing. I think it also might give you, some of these have like, they'll do things like, it's not a person, you know, and then you'll get weird stuff, or you might get animals. Playlists, like music playlists. Anyways, I highly recommend this website. I use this myself. It's free. It has a login, but I don't even know what that does. I think it just keeps your preferences or whatever. So yeah, and we can like, I'll go over like these things a little bit. So these are just settings depending on what you want. You know, if you want to be drawing women, you can set it to like women only. If you want to be drawing men, you can set it to men only. You can say all genders. Non-binary conforming models is like, you know, it is what it is. I don't even know what we get from that, because I've always just done all genders. I'm not trying to, you know how to draw only one kind of person. You can say nude or covered, like your preference. So when you do an actual life drawing class, you start with nudes, because the idea is for you to learn anatomy first, and then like basically like once you've mastered anatomy or become proficient in anatomy, then you sort of excel to drawing clothes. And at that point, it's like a break, because clothes hide everything, right? Like if I'm like, to draw an anatomically correct person, you're like, oh, this muscle folds into here and this, right? And it's complex. But as soon as you add clothes, you can sort of like lie and cheat, especially if they're wearing like baggy clothes and what have you. You can just like get away with stuff. And I think that's why a lot of like early artists will draw characters in like baggy clothes. Not so much as a like stylistic choice, but more as a, wow, the return that they get from it is like, wow, it looks not bad. Right? And why when you get comic book characters or like very illustrative artists, you'll get like they're in skin tight clothes, and you see like, you know, every head of the muscle, like every detail of the muscle. And this also has like different ages, but we can just do adults. We'll do covered models because YouTube is prudish. And timing. And then in the timing section, I would recommend that you do class, which is which mimics how an actual life drawing class would behave. Because if you do standard interval and I say 30 seconds, each pose and each like picture will be on screen for 30 seconds. But if you do class mode, it runs through the gauntlet, I guess, of time frames, which I would recommend because the earlier times allow you to loosen up and like start to draw faster, loosen up your arm and get like a nice movement and gesture and get you into a mental space where you're like, draw faster, I gotta draw faster. So by the time like 2, 5, 10 minutes comes around and you're still in that headspace, and then suddenly you're like, oh, I've got like so much time, I can really start to, but you still have all that looseness. Because what happens when people draw, like without this kind of time scale, is you'll draw, but you'll start to finick over, like, you'll be like, oh, I gotta draw a hand and I gotta draw a fingernail. you know? You'll be like, oh, like if I'm all like nitty gritty detail here, and I'm like, okay, I gotta draw a hand, I gotta draw like a finger, I gotta draw a fingernail. Oh, there might be some wrinkles. Maybe there's like a knuckle. Okay, I gotta draw one more finger. So, just a finger, or maybe thumb. And so like you're gonna have a collection of pieces, is what it's, if you understand, right? It's not gonna feel like a whole. But when you life draw, the goal is to start as a whole. And because you have 30 seconds to mimic, right? At first, for 30 seconds, you're just going to be like, I don't know. There's like something. There's a butt and there's a leg and and then it's like time's up. Like that's 30 seconds, right? And then you're like, okay. But when you're drawing fast like this, you're thinking about the whole. This is the goal. So, unintentional rhyme. The goal is to have like the fullness of the image, the fullness of the character. And in that regard, you want like, depending on kind of like your goals with, doing the figure drawing, a lot of it is going to be like personality and acting, right? Anyone looking at any one image, the first thing you're going to get across is like you like it or you hate it, right? You're going to get the emotion. You're going to be like, oh, that's a sad scene. Oh, it's a happy scene. Oh, this person seems really whimsical or whatever. Before you start to scrutinize like, oh, that anatomy is wrong. Oh, there's like one more finger, right? Just think about AI art right now. People look at it and go, wow, that's really good. Oh, that spaghetti's weird though, but they still initially thought it was good. So the idea here is work on the whole image and be loose with it, because that way you're going to get like a much funner image and something that's more like narrative based and character based, where you're like, oh, I understand this character, I understand this expression, I understand this scene, more so than like, wow, you drew that one finger real good. The rest sucks though. But that one finger, this is what we're trying to get across. Don't ever stop autosaving. Don't try to fixate like on any one part of what you're drawing. Be like, okay, we're over here, we're over here, we're over here, and like move around the image more. And that way you can you'll get a much fuller concept, and whether it works or doesn't is going to be like the whole image. Oh, that whole thing doesn't work, or that whole thing does work. But you won't run into the problem where I'm going to assume you have run into, where you've spent like an hour drawing a detailed hand, or like an hour drawing like a detailed eye, and you're like, oh man, I love that eye. Okay, time to draw a second eye. Oh, crap. God damn. And then you're like, I don't want to work on this anymore, right? And you give up. So if you work on like the whole image, it's more likely that, okay, well, like that gesture is good. I like that gesture. How do I now plus it, right? And so now that you have this is also why I'm using a very sharp brush, let's say, but preference would be to have, where's my brush? Preference would be to have like a soft brush like this for gesture if I was working digitally. And so, or even traditionally. And so I'd want to have something soft where it's like fuzzy and undefined, so that phase 2 is I'm starting to get some more detail in there. And then so on and so forth, right? So you can build up, but because you have the gesture that works well, it's worth going on to like a next phase, rather than I've drawn one good hand, I've drawn a really good foot, but if only I could get the rest of that drawing in there. And if you were drawing a whole foot, You know, like if the purpose was I'm doing feet studies, you know, start with the foot. But if the point was to draw a whole character, you don't want to be like spending 1 hour on a foot and then having to like move on and being like, okay, now I got to draw the rest of it. And you're like, I don't need, oh, it doesn't even fit the page, right? There's like a lot of problems that way. What we got here? Shapes, just drawing lines to the pose and then just draw the actual person around it. Wait, where did I get off? Where's the last thing? Most of them covered. I usually draw the character first and then draw the clothes on top afterwards. Yeah. You mean like your life drawing is covered? My art teacher had us do, I think, figure drawings before. We were only given 2 or 3 minutes to draw someone's pose quickly, yeah. But specifically, no shapes, just drawing lines, shapes, their pose, and then just draw the actual person around it. Just like, oh, you mean like lines, like stick figure. Yeah. When you say lines and not shapes, you mean like a stick figure, I'm presuming. That's fine. That's what gesture is. And that is what you're going to have time for. Yeah. That's so that's called gesture. Well, yeah, it's called gesture, but it's not necessarily lines. It's, if that's how they phrase it, it's weird. I would have wanted them to explain further. But basically, you do a gesture, which is like in as little lines as possible, convey the whole pose. And so the most important line that they may have brought up to you is like the line of action, right? And so let me just like put on the thing, which I'll have to have like on screen. So we'll see how that works. So first of all, class mode, because we, like I said, I guess in your class that you always had 2 minutes, but I still would preference that you have like the whole gauntlet of time, right? So you can, in this case, you go like, how long am I willing to draw? And this is another nice thing for just say learning sake, because like to set a timeline is what I mean. Because using myself as an example, if you have a goal or what have you, a metric of today I'm going to draw until I finish this one drawing or until it's good, you could theoretically be there all day. You know, it's an open-ended goal, and you're not likely to achieve it, and then you're going to come out of that day feeling like crap, right? You're going to draw for 12 hours, presumably 4 hours, 1 hour. But at the end, because it's an open-ended goal of, you know, you're done when it's good or what have you, you draw, and then you're like, it's not even done, right? But if your goal is time-based, you can say, I'm drawing for an hour today. I'm drawing for 4 hours today, whatever the metric is that you set for yourself. And then you do that time, and at the end you can feel achieved in that goal because it's like a realistic, attainable goal. 1 hour of drawing, a figure drawing, like amazing. 3 hours is kind of the general class time for life drawing. In Toronto, and I think like you're kind of GTA-esque, I have a friend who runs their own life drawing thing. I think it's called, I don't remember what it's called. It's called like Art 25, I want to say. Am I wrong? But they do their own life drawing session, and it's like for $25 or 20. It's like a drop-in class. I might be wrong, but it's like something like this. It's like Art 25. I'll have to like look into it. And I'm just like not trying to, you know, search through my Instagram and whatnot on stream, but it's something like that. And it's They do their own live sessions. Me, is your drawing for commissions or are you getting paid for it? No, I'm drawing because I want to draw for myself and I want to finish it today. That's great. Yeah. We're very much in a like money focused mindset in the world. But yeah, no, like at least to start, and really for your like well-being in general, you need to find that like I'm drawing this because I like to do it, because that's what's going to carry you through. Like I was saying at the beginning, right? You want to find for yourself like, oh, I like doing this, and because you like doing it, you're going to keep doing it, and because you keep doing it, you're going to get good. It's easy, right? It's not more complicated than that. You like it, you do it, because you do it, you get good. That's how everything works. So very much keep that in mind. You like it, or find that thing that you like doing, draw that thing. The more you draw, the better you're gonna get. It's very simple, and keep doing it, right? What else? Yes, so the figure drawing thing, I wanted to like give you an example, I guess, of figure drawing. But perhaps I'm getting maybe ahead of myself because there's some things I want to get to before figure drawing necessarily. I'm getting the idea, I guess, that your want is to get better at figure drawing. But that's fine, and that's good. But there's things I think that I'll want to see you try before we get to figure drawing necessarily. So I'm just gonna like go through it because like figure drawing's like down here. Oh, you can't see my layers. Yeah. Oh, it's because my whole thing is moved over. I gotta move you over here, but it's locked, so I gotta move this. Yeah, it's because like life drawing is like here in my in my planning to-dos or whatever. So like I guess bear with me while I get through the other to-dos, and if you don't want to do them, you don't want to do them, but I think they're very much worth knowing about and doing, to be fair, because if nothing else, they're a good practice exercise for when you're like starting life drawing. Every day when I would have a life drawing class, I would do these things to kind of warm up. So consider them a warm up if nothing else. So first of all, yeah, we had that. You can see my inexperience when I'm like, where is the button that does that? So first of all, reference good, use it. And second of all, I'm gonna assume like figure drawing is like what you're going for. So that's fine. That's great. Put those away for now. And then what was this? This is like what, yeah. You had said this, but I wanted this to be like, I really want us to like hone in on this. Like to get better at art, you have to find that thing that makes you have fun with it, that makes you like it, because you're going to keep doing it. And if you keep doing it, you're going to get better, right? So I just, in case you hadn't brought it up, it's very, very important. Find this. If you don't know what this is for yourself, find this. Find your reasoning for having fun. And that can be whatever it is, right? But find that and keep doing that, because that's going to get, like, there's just a lot to do, right? To get good at anything. There's a lot of time that needs to be spent. And the only way you're going to spend that time is by enjoying your time. So whatever that is, right? Draw hunky guys, draw hunky girls, whatever you need to do to want to stay there and spend that time, spend that time. That's going to get you that skill. If you like drawing tanks, like draw tanks, like whatever it is, right? And then that'll be the thing that you do. That'll be the thing that you're known for, and that'll be the thing that you get paid for, hopefully. When I'm bored, I doodle for fun. Amazing. Mm, mm. Well, hopefully, yeah, hopefully I get you to learn stuff. And then this was just like another tip is don't do too much. Like don't kind of overburden yourself with goals or what have you. Like don't be like, I'm gonna do 12 hours of drawing today, because like if like don't force it as I guess what I'm saying. If you're enjoying yourself and you've like worked all day, you know, try to have that like balance where you're like, I'm having fun right now, but I am tired. Let me have a break. And then that way tomorrow you'll continue enjoying it. Like don't kind of kill your dream. There's a problem in the arts in that like once it becomes the business side of things, then what you ended up doing for fun is now your job. And when that happens, it stops being fun because it stops being like what you want to do, and it starts being what you're made to do. And so it's really easy to lose that passion, let's say, when your hobby becomes your job. So this is hopefully and potentially likely future advice for you. So then, yeah, number one that we're going to do for kind of like just getting better at art is line exercises and circle exercises. So I don't know if you've like done this in your art class. Yeah, I was already on old comment. But to explain, what I mean with like line exercises and circle exercises is literally filling a page with like perpendicular lines. Well, see, I messed up. Perpendicular lines of like very controlled like line weight and what have you. The goal here is drawing ultimately is a mechanical function of your body, right? Like you're having to train small muscles to do like exactly what you want them to do. So like that, when circles just sucks inherently, right? So when I say line and circle exercises, it's going to be like literally fill a page with perpendicular lines, but like strategically. The goal here is you're literally training the muscles of your body to work the way you want. And just like, you know, becoming a bodybuilder, like you don't have those muscles and you have to train to then have those muscles. So initially you probably are trying to draw and you don't have the muscle dexterity in your hand and your arm to, you know, perform. So this is two things. You're training the muscles, and you're also, let's say, even if your muscles are already warmed up, you're past this, this is the warm up for the day, right? So if I'm doing life drawing today, or, you know, if I'm about to do life drawing and I'm waiting for the model to set up and all of these things, I'm filling a page with, I mean, like, to be honest, I don't do the lines anymore. As perhaps like you can tell, right? But like the stabilization is kind of like screwing me up. I don't know. Because see how like there's a little thing? That's like from the stabilization. That's the like tablet waiting to see what I'm doing. But I just fill a page with circles, right? And I would suggest this to any artist of any level to be doing this at some point in the day for to warm you up, right? And to do different specific shapes in separate boxes, like on box spirals, one box squiggles. Yeah, yeah. I don't know why boxes. That's kind of weird. It's interesting because like I like seeing what different artists or different art teachers will teach their students, and it's all like in the nebula of the same like learning curriculums. And if the thing that they do is teach art, like they're artists and like they're not just a PE teacher and they happen to be teaching art today, and therefore they're going off like a book and a curriculum. But the curriculum is like kind of the same in terms of like draw boxes in different ways. That's like in my interpretation is there's many ways to do a line, and I think that's meant to teach you why use what line, you know? Because you want, some cases you want, even like I've got different brush choices here, right? I might want this calligraphy brush because it's doing like an automatic thick thin, which just like looks nice, right? For like text specifically, but that could just be the appeal I want. I could want a textured brush. So all this to say, like, I think that project was meant to teach you art theory, let's say, in that there's many kinds of lines and you need to be aware that they communicate different things. So if I have a textured line, this makes it feel like very gritty and raw, which is a quality you might want, but it should frankly be a choice and not like, a happenstance. It should be like, I'm choosing this textured line because I want it to feel more organic, more real, what have you, whatever kind of like reasoning you put behind it. Right? Oh, I like this textured brush. I happen to be like, oh, I like a textured brush because, I don't know, it just feels like what I grew up on, I guess. So that's like, I can get into the specifics of that in a second, but like art theory is that there are different aspects of what makes art, and more specifically, what contributes to appeal. Like what makes a piece of artwork appealing, as though to say like enjoyable or good, right? And it's like looking into it, it'll kind of feel like, yeah, like it'll be like, oh, the elements of art are like line and color and texture and I should know the other things, but I don't remember them off the top of my head. But there are many aspects to the elements of art, and to each one of those elements are many properties that, many directions that they could go, and each one of those directions has like a different feel, has a different goal or aim or outcome. And the goal of that project, I think, was to teach you without overtly teaching you, which is interesting, that like, hey, draw a box squiggly. Maybe I think you maybe mean like a 2-dimensional box. I don't think they would have made you do a 3-dimensional box. Draw a box squiggly. Draw a box not squiggly. Right? Draw a box like with many lines. Draw a very clean box. And the idea would be like, what are the feelings that we get from each of these? Right? That's my interpretation of that lesson. I don't know. Giving them the benefit of the doubt, I feel like that's a really good thing to teach you, because they're not overtly teaching you this, the art theory and the quality that line will give. But I think that's hopefully what you would have learned, where at the end, or maybe after handing in the assignment, they're like, oh, well, it's like, see how this one feels, I don't know, scary, pointy, you don't want to touch it. This one's like nice, clean, and smooth. This one feels like I barely know that it's a square. It's like unconfident. This feels confident. This is a quality of when producing art that you will have to ultimately get to, which is when you draw, and it's like your final drawing, because this can be your rough, but if you're drawing and you're like doing what's called like hairy lines, you know, you're doing this kind of thing. Right? And then you get this character at the end. It gives the impression that the artist is unconfident in their ability because there are no sure lines drawn, right? There's no. But if you were to draw with like singular lines, let's say, with less lines and less, even I'm drawing hairy because, you know, I've got a cleanup phase. I don't go straight to cleanup. No one goes straight to cleanup. Right? If I was doing something like this, it's more confident in its appearance, and then you go, oh, okay, I like that better. Hopefully, I don't actually like this, but you know, hopefully you like it better. It just has a more confident appeal to it when you draw in this way. Than having like hairy lines, right? But you can have that to start. You can be like figuring things out and then have a cleanup phase is pretty normal. That's absolutely fine. It's just to say that your final should come across more confident in that way. Since I'm more confident myself. Yeah. Well, yeah, I've done hairy lines. Yeah. Everyone's done hairy lines. It's if nothing else, in a box. Draw shapes in a box. Yeah. Hairy lines is if I go over something again and I don't like it. And then, yeah. Classic. But yeah, just to like finish off this whole thing as an exercise, as like a warm-up exercise, if anything, let's say you have a day where you're like, I want to draw. I mean, it seems like you won't have this problem so much. In which case, like you have topics that you want to draw, and that's great. So in that case, I think I would still push you to like, let's say, fill every other page with like an exercise page, or at the beginning of every day, do a warm-up page like this. If you don't want to like ruin your sketchbook or whatever, you want to keep that pristine, which don't have that mindset about drawing ever, you know, keeping it, mess that shit up. You know, when you're learning, don't have, you know, fear of what you're doing. Be like, see, like I could fill a page like this and then be like, okay, well now I'm going to paint over top of it, you know, and like find something new, because now that I've ruined it, so to speak, I don't care so much, you know, I don't have those limitations of a white page. When you have like a pristine white page in front of you, it breaks your brain. So if you're like, oh, I want to draw, but like, oh, the page is so nice and like I'm not feeling myself today, you know, crumple up the page, spill some coffee on it, right? Like if you're feeling like unconfident or what have you about drawing, it has to do with like, oh, it's such a clean piece of paper, I definitely have to do something good on this. It's expensive paper, I can't, like none of that, right? Ruin it. And now that it's ruined, like you have the confidence, let's say, of like, I'm just gonna like I'm gonna try some weird shit that I've never tried before, and it could suck, but it's fine, right? Like this is the mentality that artists should have, but we very much like lost it, I think, because now we're like, oh, I gotta produce something good. Just, you know, like you're learning, you want to be like, no, I'm just gonna draw some crap, and it's like definitively going to be crap, or it might be good, but you know, I don't have that expectation, that need for it to be good is bad for you, right? Just be drawing, but you know, you don't have that like limitation so much. So just be finding a reason, like every other page, and get printer paper, let's say, and just fill a page at the beginning of the day of doing these like perfect perpendicular lines as much as you can get them to be, because that way you're going to work on that muscle control to have like exactly the curve that you want and exactly the circle that you want and exactly the straights that you want. And you're just going to have like, you know, more control in your arm, and you might get tired from it, but this is what, you know, these are the muscles we're working on, and this is the skill that we're working on. And do that for lines and do that with circles. And the circle part is almost like more important, because even if you already had all of this dexterity to draw lines, the circles are more the exercise that you would need at any level to warm up for that day. And the thing I want to get across to you about this warm up has to do with like how people draw. So like, I'm like, how do I put this, I guess? It depends. And I think I actually like hold my pen wrong, because I actually like hold my, this is a Cintiq pen because I'm drawing on a Cintiq right now. But like I hold my pen like resting on my middle finger. Like these two, my index and my thumb, actually push. You know what I need is another scene. No, not this. I need another scene where it's just like a close-up on me. Or full cam, let's call you. Sorry, I'm gonna disappear for a second while I have to like set everything up again, because OBS ate all of my stuff. And for no reason, I'm very angry about it. Does this keep my cropping? Ew, disgusting. Okay, so I'm gonna have to do another one. A new one. It's still full, let's say, because you're dumb, because this thing is a dumb program. I hate it. Wow, look at it, it's so different. Oh, you're the other camera. Yeah, that explains a lot. What? And okay, and it doesn't want to work. Okay, so after all of that, it sucks anyway. So I was trying to go to full screen, but it was not wanting to use my camera anymore. Why? I don't know. Okay. So I hold my pen closer to the bottom of my pencil, and I do the exact same thing. So you rest it on the middle finger as well. I found out recently that like the goal actually is to like tripod it, but I've never done that. And so now I have like a really big callus like on my middle finger, because it rests on that. And then basically like I'm sort of drawing with my middle finger. Like my other fingers are so I mean, I don't think it's done any kind of like damage to me, but I do have a huge callus. But apparently the goal is to tripod it. But that aside, it kind of like it is what it is at that point. But this will be like beneficial to you, but it ends up, I found it to be like almost a drawback, because you learn one way, which is the way I'm about to show you for life drawing, but then when you start to work digital, you're like, I can't do that. That's not even a thing that's possible. So when you draw traditionally, and this is recommended and like where all my muscle memory is, which is unfortunate because when I work digital, I can't do this. You want to like, okay, so like I hold it like this, but when I do life drawing, I actually hold it like this. And the reason being, this locks down your wrist. Like when it's like this, I'm forced, like the circles I'm doing is this. It's entirely in the wrist, all the circles that I can make, which is essentially the range of motion for drawing that I have, right? So, right, like I can do a small circle, which is wrist, I can do, this is really, this should be like elbow, but like a bigger circle is elbow, and then a really big circle you're drawing from the shoulder. This is the mechanics, I guess, of drawing. So when I'm drawing small and detail work, I'm kind of pivoting on like the heel, let's say, of my hand, and I'm drawing a little circle. To draw a bigger circle, this is just because like I'm on the Cintiq, but like on a bigger circle, I'm like no longer touching the screen, and I'm drawing from the elbow, and my elbow is the mechanic that's drawing like a bigger circle, and an even bigger circle is now from the shoulder. And like that's, you want to have that open, but when you're drawing like this, you're kind of locked. When you draw like this, you can do it more, you know. So if I'm doing like traditional life drawing, I'm using I mean, I don't anymore, because now I'm like, oh, I got to get good for like digital. So like, but I used to, I would hold it like this, and I would hold either like what's called Conte, which is kind of like compressed charcoal, or like NuPastel, which is pastels or some such. And I would draw like that. And so now you get like more flow in your drawing. You get a looser, more expressive drawing, and you're less stuck in like little details. And I'm using like the side of the Conte or pencil. Do I have an actual pencil around? You think I would. You think I would. I've got like these like watercolor dealies. And so that way you're drawing. Oh, you don't autofocus. That's fantastic. But like I'm drawing with like the side of it, you know, I'm drawing with like this flatter, longer side. I mean, I could just get you to focus, but I'm kind of, anyways, I don't want to like fiddle with it. So yeah, I'm drawing with like the thicker side, like the longer side, to do like more generalist things, especially like when you're doing the gesture. And then when I'm going to go detail, then I kind of like change it. Now I can do detail, right? I can now work on like, oh, here's some eyes. Here's like, you know, the inner lines of musculature and detail. But at first I'm drawing like this so that I'm using my whole arm to draw. And just the nature of holding it like this creates like, I want to say, more interesting, more appealing S and C curves, because everything you're doing with your, I feel like I'm just mimicking like a magician or something now, but everything you draw, like it's, even if you were to just draw like a straight line, it feels like easier to do, right? You just pull down and have a nice straight line. Where if I was holding it like this, like at the wrist, I have to do one movement. At the elbow, I have to do one movement. And at the shoulder, I have to do one movement, right? And they're all kind of working against each other. And I'm having to like really lock in, and it feels like it's exhausting my shoulder. But holding it like this, it's like I'm literally just letting my arm drop. I don't have to do anything with my wrist. And like the rest is like just dropping my arm. I am doing like my elbow and shoulder, but I'm just dropping my arm. So the way I was taught traditionally to draw was to like, you hold your medium, you know, your pencil, your Conte from the side, and this gives you options now. You can draw thick, like broad, fuzzy, unspecific lines to do gesture and to like figure out composition and what have you. But you can also like shift it and use like now the sharpened side and do detail. So you have like this range of thick, thin changes where you can go, okay, I'm doing thick lines. Okay, I'm doing thin lines. I'm doing detail. And you can like, you know, you're not switching hand positions, and you can just work quickly. But, and that's how I learned to draw. And that's how I did all my life drawing for like, you know, 4+ years of like at least 6 hours a week because I would have life drawing, but then I would do like extracurricular life drawing at least one time a week. So like I was doing at least 6 hours a week of life drawing at like the college level to learn how to draw basically and learn how to figure draw. And I learned it through this muscle memory. And then I got, then I started working professionally and everything is digital by and large. Especially now, everything is digital. And so on a digital drawing monitor like I have here, very big monitor on like a pivot, you are using a stylus. And with a stylus, it mimics a normal pencil, but I can't draw with this side, right? I can only draw with the tippity tip. And I can choose a different brush, but I have to specifically choose that brush. I can't go, it's not intuitive how it would be traditional where you're like, I'm drawing with the side. And then, like while I'm going, I notice that I've like created a sharp side here for detail. Okay, now I can do detail, or I can do some straight lines here. Yeah, it's 6 hours, but it's 6 hours a week to be fair. It's like 3 hours, but it also is at minimum. There is a requirement of learning, you have to spend a lot of time doing anything that you are learning to do. I'm not saying a day, I'm saying a week, because I would have a 3-hour class somewhere in that week. And then like on top of that, I would do 3 hours as like an extracurricular thing. And at minimum, they would, honestly, they were like, do it every single day because art as an industry is cutthroat as hell. Because imagine anyone you've ever talked to that's like, I like art, they're all your enemies. Not to put like a super negative spin on it, but effectively you're all competing for like the same jobs and there's not an infinite amount of jobs. So like you got to actively be better than the other people. And I think that's why they pushed it so hard on me and on us as artists to put in the time, right? Because the person that put in the time is going to be the person that gets good and likely to get the job. So that's just the reality of the situation, right? Which is why I push for find what you love about it, because that's what's going to make you spend the time, over time. I'm not saying like, oh, one day you did 12 hours. I'm looking for consistency. If you're like, I like this so much that I'm willing to put in like 2 hours every day, and that's nothing to me, like that feels like nothing, then you're going to get better than that person who's like, I want to get good at this, but I can't make myself do it. And it's like they do 12 hours like every month, right? When they're like, okay, I think I can, let's put some time in. And then they like, break themselves one day. And then the next day they're like, I can't go into it. That consistency over time is going to pay dividends. It's going to pay off. It's going to do well. So just find whatever it is for you that you like, but is also consistent. Whatever you can do daily, right? If that's a half hour, if that's an hour, that's also why I say don't do too much, because if you're like, I think I need to do 6 hours a day. I think he told me 6 hours a day. You'll do 6 hours. And then the next day you're like, I think I hate this. I don't know if I'm ever coming back to this. And then like some month goes by, then you're like, okay, I like it. He just kind of killed my passion for it a little bit. I'm going to try again. And then you do 6 hours, right? So it's like, find that happy medium of like, spend time, but like spend the time when you enjoy it, because that way you don't lose that passion. But try to be consistent with it. So if you want to be good at art, if you want to get better at art, find whatever it is that you're willing to dedicate at like a daily level, and make sure you do that daily. I don't want to give a specific like how much you need to do a day, because that'll either assume like too high a number and then I'll sort of like kill your passion for it. Find what it is for you that you enjoy, whatever that number is where you're like, I can happily spend this every single day and like it, and I'll still enjoy it and it's not hurting me. and I can do that consistently. Find whatever that number is and keep doing it. Tad C comic of something I like, but I haven't had the motivation to finish it. Yeah, I understand that very well. What I think doesn't help is that I have bad art block here and there. So, art block. The thing with art block is like, that's when you're trying to create something. And there's two things about this, and I'm short form for a show. Oh yeah, I know the Amazing Digital Circus. I've never, okay, I guess I don't know it well enough to know it be called, oh yeah, the Amazing Circus, the Amazing, and then I don't know what DC is. Digital Circus, yeah. Cool. But so for art block, this really has to do with like perfectionism and that thing that I said about like your eyes are hungrier than your stomach. I don't think it's so much a matter of art block so much as it's a matter of the perfectionism, where you're like, I want to do what I see in my head, or I want to do like the best job, or or I want to do it at the level that like I see in the show, right? And until it's good like that, I'm not gonna bother. And this is why I say with like, you know, this kind of stuff where you're like, oh, it's a page. Oh, the page was so clean, I don't even want to do anything to it. That's art block, right? Get out of here, Barnt. That's art block when you have like, oh, the page is so clean, I don't want to do it. Or I want to do it like how they did it, but I don't think I can. So I'm going to wait until I get that good. You will not be that good unless you're willing to make that like leap where you go, it's fine. It's fine that it's not what it is in my head. It's fine that it's not the best answer for this project. Basically like set yourself a deadline and like win or fail, you know, whatever ends up coming from that, like you hit that deadline, which is to say, and like, I say this, but I have yet to reach this expectation for myself, but like, nonetheless, like it's the truth. I just haven't been able to bite the bullet even on my own comic for that reason. But it is the fallback of anyone who has had an artistic want and then doesn't do that want, right? Well, if you go, oh, I've got this idea, and you don't do it for whatever that reason is, then it's definitely not getting done. But also the versions that you've never even considered won't get done, right? People like to think that one project that like I'm currently working on or that I dream of working on is my ultimate project, my perfect project, and it needs to be perfect, it needs to be great. And because of that idea, like that first thing doesn't get done. Like be willing to like accept that this won't be the best thing you've done, but by accepting that, you learned whatever you learned from that project, and you can go on to do a better project. Any artist that you see out right now is good because they've come to that realization. They went, I'm drawing not because I'm trying to produce good, just because it's funny and my friends laugh at it, or like they like it, or you know, they had like a reaction for it. And so not because the drawing was good, but just whatever emotional kind of effect they had. And so they kept drawing and they got better. And they went, you know, it's not a great drawing, but for some reason people like it, so I'm going to keep drawing. And so they keep drawing. So that's why I will say again, find what you like and draw with what you like. Not because, you know, it's at the level that you want it to be, or like your expectations of what it should be, or what other people say it should be, just because you like doing it and because you want to get better at that thing. And because you enjoy doing it, you do it more often, you get better. So put aside, like, is it good enough, and just get it done. right? Like if you only have, if you want to say the art block is, oh, I don't have the reasoning for how to make it good, like I don't have the perfect ending, let's say, in mind, or the next steps in mind, then do what you like, put down on paper, either that be the script that you're writing or the roughs or the drawings. Like, do it anyways. Do that idea that you have, even if your consideration is that's bad. Make a deadline and say the rough version, the draft, is due end of week. Do that whole comic, right? With the thinking that the week after is going to be like the revision phase, because in any kind of artistic form, there's always a revision phase. So you're going to try to get it done in 1 week. And now that you have something put on paper, now you have a product in front of you that you can say, this works, this doesn't work. This can, now that I see the whole, this can relate back to here, or this character, now you have something that you can mold. When it's all up in your head, you're just stuck in your feelings of, like, maybe you're feeling negative that day and you're like, oh, I don't think it's good enough. Oh, I had this like grand vision, but my skills are not there. There's like excuses. We tell ourselves excuses to like not get it done. So basically just do it. Just kind of like suck it up and do it. And then look at it and edit it. So in the film industry, we say, like, in film, not in like cartoons, that the film is found in editing, right? You shoot everything and then you go, oh, actually, like, this wasn't the intended purpose, but like, if we get rid of this character, the film is much tighter, and now like these relationships work better, and the ending actually, and now we can take that ending and actually do like some foreshortening if we just add one scene over here, and it just makes it stronger, right? It's found in the editing, because now you have a product in which you can see all the parts and you can make it a whole. In documentaries, it's much more true because there's no story, you're just filming the subject, and then at the end you have like so much content and you have to find the story and find the movie. And in animation, it's the other side. So you like film, documentary. Documentary is like you have no story and you have lots of footage and you have to find the story after the fact. Film is like the happy medium, like live action film is the happy medium where you know somewhat the story, but there's a lot of editing still involved. And then animation is like, we cannot afford to, be editing after the fact. So at the storyboarding and writing level, we're going to do all of our editing, so to speak, of let's draw out this whole story and create an animatic or a Leica, and then edit it there when it was like the least amount of work. And now that we know that it works for scenes and characters and acting, then we pull the trigger on the effortful work of animation, stop motion, what have you, to create it. There was a drawing in Vision. I decided to draw it out and it turned out really disappointed and I hated the way it looked so far. I want to trash it and start all over because it looks really bad to me and I didn't turn out the way I wanted it to look and how I pictured it. Do you do thumbnails? Or like aware of the concept? Do you go straight to final picture, or do you experiment and explore and that sort of thing? Is there like a little? No. Because the no, I do not thumbnails or never have done them. Okay. Would highly recommend. It's the, I would suggest the standard practice really for like image creation. So like this, like all of this is how to practice and loosen up. And just to like finish off with line work, you do still want to like be able to draw from the whole shoulder. And so if you were able to draw like on an easel, that would be best, but like, you know, it is what it is kind of a thing. But yeah, like, so right now I have like my drawing monitor on a pivot so that when I draw, and like this is a sit stand desk, so right now I'm standing, so I can have like some nice posture and I can draw upright and use my whole arm is the ideal, just to finish off with line. There's definitely like much more I could potentially go into with line, but I'll leave it there. And thumbnailing. So let's do this. I have a let's introduce you to some stuff / do some advertisement for myself a little bit. So I've got a Patreon that is, I think, linked in my socials for those interested. Calcany, and here's like some art. So part of that is you know, things that I've taught that get into a variety of topics. So like they're all PowerPoint presentations, but they go into things. So the first thing is art theory, what goes into everything that I was hinting at, which is like the elements of art: line, form, texture, space, balance, which is like what might create appeal, and, you know, types of line, types of form, all of that sort of thing. And then also principles of design, which is also like composition. Again, what makes something pretty and what makes appeal, what makes a good composition. So it goes into all of these and like the varieties, which is let's say color theory. Color theory is like that's a big boy. Which I'm sure you've like gone into to some degree. It's like certain colors invoke certain emotions, certain color combinations invoke certain emotions, and color theory is ultimately like understanding that and using it purposefully in your works, right? Like this is peaceful because it's harmonious, all of these sorts of things. But all of that to say, like, join my Patreon for anyone watching. But the reason I'm bringing that up here is because I think in my background unit, I have a thing that explains like the image creation process from thumbnails onward. Yeah, so like thumbnail might look like this, but small, right? Like, so the point here being at the thumbnail phase, this is just talking about like various things you want to be like keeping in mind while doing thumbnails. But a thumbnail exploration would be like, I've got an idea for an image. And so you might spread your page into like, you don't necessarily need to do this. You could, you know, like more on a needs base, divide up the page, but I tend to do stuff like this. Or even like if you, you don't want to do fulls. I was gonna say you could even do it like as a full page, and like no, you can't. That's like completely the opposite of the point. So like, why am I doing them like so squarish? I would want something more cinematically aspect ratioed. But keep them small. It's the whole point of a thumbnail is exactly what you think. Like when you see a thumbnail on YouTube, that's exactly what I'm talking about, something small. And the idea being like, can you sell me the image that you're creating at this scale, right? This should be your step one. This is where, like I was explaining with, you know, create the product first and then make it good in terms of filmmaking. You know, when you know, in filmmaking, you film it and then on editing, you go, oh, but this could be better than this. And all of that exploration is is done at the editing phase. But in animation, it's too effortful to like animate a whole scene, which could take months potentially in some cases to do a scene, and then go, actually, we're not going to use that scene. And it's like, that was months of work. Imagine like the cost, right? At an hourly rate for that person doing all that work, and then it's just scrapped. It was just useless. So that's why you do all that exploration at the storyboarding phase. And so something resembling that should happen for any kind of image creation. So you want to do your exploration, does it work? Does it not work? Do I like this idea? At first, when you're doing like the least, in the least amount of effort possible, explore. You don't want to do like how I just did with this. Like, this never started this way, right? I didn't. Actually, to some degree, it did, and it wasted a lot of my time because I'm off my practice, I think. But like, to do this whole image and to like, this never started at this scale or what have you, right? Like, first of all, I already had like the photo that I used, and then played with it conceptually, and then was like, I like this. Let me try some colors. And then I did rough colors, which is what this is, where I was like, let me just paint some rough colors and go, do I like that? But, I'm not being specific with anything. Even like these clouds, which I ultimately didn't use, I was like, do I want clouds? I'm just trying things. But in this case, it did happen to be, a full scale version. So I would call this like a rough clean, right? Which is to say it's, at full scale, but it's still rough. I'm still exploring. So get out of here. Okay, so first stage should always be thumbnails. So like, say I am trying to do my full image, and my full image is ultimately going to be the shape of, was it 16:9, like widescreen general film format. And so if I know that's the case, then I make a bunch of thumbnails, a bunch of like small squares that are going to be in that ratio. And then you're exploring like the different ideas in terms of composition. So you're like, do I want it to be like a really low horizon line, and I see like a lot of the sky, what have you. I want something over here and like characters small. I don't know. Some things that lead up. Maybe there's like a road, right? First idea, which is frankly always going to be like your worst idea. Almost never is your first idea like your best idea, let's say. Because it's like a knee-jerk reaction. I've put like no effort into this because it's like, is there gonna be characters? Is it a landscape? It's like, whatever. Yeah, I just need to draw something, right? So, but now that I have this, I can go, why isn't it working? And I might look at the principles of design, which is like, I would suggest use that as a to-do list, a checklist of sorts of things you might address to this thumbnail, right? But what we're looking at is this whole image now. Does it or does it not work? And then you make another thumbnail. And because it's so small, at no point are you like it's impossible really to be like, oh, let me just draw the grass in. Oh, I got to draw that person's face. You're not wasting any of that time. Does it or does it not work? The does it or does it not work is always going to be a compositional issue. If I had like, just like, say this was a full drawing. If I had like just the best drawing of a guy over here. It's just, he's the best guy that you've ever seen, right? That I've ever drawn in my whole career. But this is the page, and this is the artwork I'm submitting, right? And then there's like, oh, I had to fill in the rest of the page. Damn it. And there's not even like a ground. What is this perspective? Is he like in a hole, right? But the drawing was so good, I had to finish it, right? This is why you do thumbnails, because no one part of a drawing being like amazing is going to make this painting or image like good or make it good, right? This could be the best image, doesn't matter. Like this is the image, right? So that's the goal. We want the full thing to be good. And that's entirely what the principles of design are, right? Principles of design are like a, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like a rubric for composition. Composition being like, what do you do about the orientation or, you know, like the image that makes the image good or not, you know? What happens when I have something over here? What happens when I have a lot of empty space? What happens when I, you know, fill something with like a lot of detail, but then have like a little empty space that's like the one place that doesn't have detail? What happens when something's like orientated this way or that way, or there's like a flow of shapes, you know? It's the does it or does it not work? And so once you have like the concept that you want, you just keep doing these small versions and you get like a quick analysis of like this works, this doesn't work, for whatever. And you can go further to analyze it to say, you know, for this one, I don't like how flat it is. Like the characters are perfectly centered. This shape is just like all the way on the side, and what is it doing? You know, it's a low horizon line, but it's empty. And there's like a lot of sky, but like, what are we doing? You know, we're not doing anything with it. And so, okay, so I want it to not be flat. Okay, let's have like a composition that's going, you know, horizontally, like across the screen, and it's more dynamic as such. And the characters aren't perfectly centered, but they're on the thirds. If you've heard the rule of thirds, there is a want or what have you for things to be somewhere in these quadrants of your composition, especially in a film aspect ratio like this, right? So if we want things to be there, okay, what happens when I have my one character here? And their back is turned to camera for some reason. You know, you could just try things in this case because you can afford to. You can afford to just try things. When it's a full page, or when you have that concept of, oh, it's a clean page, I don't want to draw anything here, right? You get limited. Your art gets limited, and you get like small, and you get afraid, and it shows, right? But when you are working small like this, nothing matters. This is an exploration page. Who cares? Right? Draw Mickey Mouse. Draw all the copyrighted characters. Like do whatever you want is all I'm saying. Maybe there's like some guy like running over here. Right? And then you're like, I mean, it's definitely better than the other things. So you can like try every idea you've had this way. You can go like, what if the character is bigger? Like, you know, and then if you're not, if you don't know like in what things to try, I guess, then you have your one image that you thumbnail, your first idea, let's say, whatever that be. But now that you have that, you can analyze it and go like, I don't think it's working for these reasons. Okay, get rid of those reasons. I think I wanted something more like this. Okay, then like add add those things that you wanted, you know? So like you can remove some things, you can add some things. And ultimately what happens is like it gets a little bit better, it gets a little bit better, it gets a little bit better. Maybe it backtracks where you tried something but it sucks. But now you know that that one thing sucks out of all of the things you might have done. So okay, don't do that. Where when you did the final, you did that thing and you're like, ah, crap, I wish I didn't. But because you did it as a thumbnail, you're like, I know to not do that. Okay, don't do that. You get rid of it. Then you add a different thing and it works or doesn't. You try another thing. But like the goal here is you do as little effort as possible in terms of composition of like, where are the characters? What is the idea? And you get a preview, just like how you would get a preview in YouTube with thumbnails, to be like, is that something engaging? Is that something that like, even seeing it at this level, I like it, right? And if you like it, then you move on to the next stage. So this is like an example, but like blown up to be big. But notice there's no detail here, right? Can I? I can't actually steal you. Why? I'll just do this. So this is actually from a movie, and I don't know if you've seen the movie. But the game is like, figure out that movie. So yeah, this might be a thumbnail and it'll be small. Right? And you're doing like, okay, there's, let me get darker so you can see. So you're like, oh, there's this nice line here, and like I'm thinking there's going to be, I don't know, things here in the foreground, and some guys are going to be going this way. There's going to be like something here, and it's an upshot based on this perspective, right? And you're like, yeah, I think that's pretty interesting composition, because here we have like a leading line that leads us from, there's just frankly a million things to talk about in terms of like composition and art, and we're not going to get to everything today, but the top left is like the most important reading space for story. And so having this like big object come in and lead us to the middle, where the middle of like the whole piece, there's like a bunch of busyness here, and then there's this object that's going up and out, so that we get this like effect where our eye goes in and around the image. And I think there's something that leads us back down, but I think when analyzing it, I was like, oh, I'm surprised that it doesn't actually. And maybe that's because this isn't like a Western production. So, but yeah, so that would be your thumbnail, potentially their thumbnail. And when this was conceptualized, probably this was just like a small sketch in a storyboard, where it was literally a square in a page that was like 1/3 of a page, right? And I don't know if he did like a thumbnail process, but it would have been like, hey, let me try the next thing, let me try the next thing. Or in this iteration of the boards, I'm getting a little bit more detailed. And at first it was just, you know, like many characters, and like there's a room, and there's just many characters. Like the original thumbnail for this potentially could have just been something like this. It's just a room and it's an upshot. Right? It could have been like just as simple as that. But iterations, and then you go, you know, like through doing that, you might have gone like somewhere around wherever it is. Like, let's say this one, you're like, this is the best one that works so far, but I want to add a little bit of this in here. I think like there was aspects of that. Okay, what does that look like? So basically, like, you go until you're like, I don't have any new ideas, and this is the best I've managed to do, and I like anything I could add is making it worse, right? At that stage, you go to the next stage, which, oh, that is a perspective thing. Where are you at, yo? you go to your rough, where it's like, let's take that composition now, but let's start figuring out more detail, right? You can see that the composition is still there, and we don't want to lose that, but let's add more detail for the full image. Okay, so let's get more clearly the perspective done correctly. Let's figure out like the every little part of the image. How do we plus it? How do we get it more accurate, more detailed? You know, bring it to that next level. And it's still just exploration, but now you're doing it at like before they were thumbnails and they were small. The rough phase might be like half the page. And you might do still several of them, right? Thumbnails you're doing at I would say more than 5 for sure. 100% more than 1. You never start with a final image right away. So probably closer to 10, maybe more thumbnails. Right? And then you're gonna go to rough, where you're probably gonna do maybe like 3, but could be more. It kind of like, it is what it needs to be. So if you get to the 3rd one, you're like, that still sucks. You do a 4th one, you know, you do a 5th one. But like it'll be about 3. And basically I would suggest keeping it around that number because like I said before, I think, like try to just get things done and move on. Because if you're like, it's still not good enough, you're at some point you're just spinning your wheels, you're just wasting your time. Like if it's not working and you're forcing it, you know, don't force it. It is what it is, and learn from it what you can, move on, you know, like take that learning onto like the next kind of project or whatever. So, and then the rough is like more detail, but like exploration. You're still just like, you know, you have the basic composition and idea that you want, but you're like, you know, over here, I knew there's just this perspective and there's like balconies, but like, what are the people doing? I don't know, maybe this guy's like kind of half fallen off. You're just like still exploring things and trying things. Maybe there's like a vase here. You're just exploring and you're trying things, but at a more detailed level, and you're plussing the pieces, which is to say, like before you had a composition, but now try to figure out the perspective, try to figure out the anatomy of the characters, like plus it, you know, get it a little bit more to that finished level. Caveat, because like, what does plus it mean, you know? Plus it, like if it's a landscape or like a room, get that perspective a little bit more accurate or correct. Get that anatomy a little bit more correct. And you're going to do something like 3. And then you're going to still just have something called like a rough clean. And probably you will just have one rough clean. But the purpose of a rough clean, I don't know why I keep like not drawing that as a straight line. And you might not even have a rough clean, but I tend to, because I draw very roughly. Right? A rough clean is going to be like you're aiming for the final quality of line and everything, like aim for final art. But the like between rough clean and clean, like it you've probably like experienced this already, but like when you're doing line art, it's such a detail oriented thing that even though you have your rough and you're like, yeah, I mean, like now that I've explored the rough and I know like what all these characters are doing on this balcony and I know the perspective and like I've explored things well enough, you're like, okay, well, like time to draw the balcony, but you don't know anything of the detail of the balcony. Let's say you know the perspective is like this, but you don't know, hey, is this a hole, right? Or is this going to be like two lines to like show thickness? Is this going to be like kind of like a wicker thing or what have you? Or is this going to be like slates of wood? Is there going to be like detail to it? Is there going to be holes? And if you just do that on the fly, like, I don't know, maybe that's just where people are at and they can go, oh, I just know the detail and I'm just going to do it. But I'm more still just like, I guess I'm like of two minds about this. If you don't need rough clean, you don't need rough clean. But I like to still be figuring out or like leave a space for, I can clean this up if I need to, especially at a digital level, right? Where I go, oh, like there might be something here, there might not be. And that way, oh, I don't want that. And I erase it, right? But like say I'm working traditional, I can't really like erase this perfect like how I could digitally. Like digitally, this is gone. No one will ever know that's there. But traditionally, you erase it and you're really just getting like some of it gone, but it's never really gone. And you're like, oh, okay, that sucks that I tried something, I guess. And then it puts you into a mindset of don't try things. And that's just bad. That's just like a bad place for an artist to be. So this way you get to try things. And if they don't work and like, oh, like I can't quite erase it, fine. But I do want you to always be trying things. It's just a better place for an artist to be because the artwork's going to be better. It's going to be like more expressive. It's going to be a better idea, like all of these things. And then, so basically like rough clean is like, it's the exact idea. It's the exact, like, it's almost exactly the lines that you would ultimately want to be there, but it's like, it's dirty. It's like not quite there. So then there's the clean phase, which is your final art. And that's going to be like full sized, where rough clean potentially is full size. Wait, say that? Yeah, this will be like full sized. So like I made this little square, but really rough clean will be full sized. Right? Because the idea here is you're aiming for the final art, right? So it's going to be full sized, but you're going to have like little mess ups and whatever. And so now you have your full art, your final art. Let's just say full/final art. Right? And this is going to be like full size. And all you're basically doing is like taking that original. This is probably considering digital, but even if this wasn't digital, you would still have your rough clean underneath like some sort of light disc table. I guess my light disc doesn't show up on camera. There's a light disc back there from my animation days. Not that I've ever stopped being an animator, but like my schooling days. So you would have like a light disc underneath your work, and you would just use it as a reference to now do your final art, where you get to like have this underneath and purposefully draw like exactly the lines that you want, exactly where they need to be, exactly with the line quality that you want to give it because of the like emotional quality of it or what have you. And just create that proper like full art. And now you know that you can spend your time here on the clean art because like if you were to jump to final art at the beginning, you're just taking a leap of faith you're gambling. And if you're like an amazing artist, that like has all that experience and knows exactly what they're trying to create and everything, like you might do that. But people that are learning see somebody's final art and they don't realize the years of this process they had to do, of thumbnails, of roughs, of looking up reference, of learning, of doing studies, until they're like, I know how to draw a scorpion from every angle. And I do a book about scorpions. So now I can just do the scorpion drawing. And then everyone else sees that on like a YouTube short and they go, that's apparently what I got to do as an artist, is just from my brain, scorpions, full anatomy, any angle. And it's like, no one has ever on earth done that. They studied scorpions for a decade and then they were able to do that, right? It never did like that. And you know, even then, do they just be doing like the final art right away? Probably not. There's still a lot of, hey, I'm gonna do a rough exploration phase until it works. Now I know which one works so that I don't waste my time, right? The whole point of thumbnails, you do a bunch of small drawings really quickly so that you find out at the beginning, when you spend the least amount of time, is this worth doing? Is this worth my time? You can look at the little thing and go, I like it. Okay, it's worth going to the next phase. Is it still good? It's worth going to the next phase. Is it still good? It's worth going to the next phase. And so once you've passed that gauntlet of phases, thumbnails, rough, clean, final art, once you've gotten to final art, you can spend the, 2 hours, 5 hours, 30 hours doing meticulous, perfect line art, doing like every little detail, doing the cross hatching, like silliness of getting texture and shading and cross contour and all of these things, but with the like realization, I guess, in your heart and the belief in your heart that you're not wasting your time, right? You know that you liked it at a thumbnail phase, you liked it at rough, you liked it at rough clean. So like you almost can't ruin it at this point, because what makes it work was the whole composition, and you know that works, and there's basically no getting away from that, right? That it worked as a composition. The worst you can do is do bad line art. And at that point, it's such a detail thing that is not working that no one's going to care, unless, they're going to see that full image walking by the kiosk or the desk or like on your wall or wherever it is. They're going to walk by and go, wow, that's really good. And like keep going. And, saying the line art is bad, they'll look at it and go, wow, that's really good. You messed up on those 3 lines. Still really good though. $50? Okay. Or whatever the cost is. But my point is, doing that gauntlet means you've done all of your exploration at the beginning of, will it work? Let me try this. Does that thing I tried work or not? You've done all that at the beginning. And once you've gotten that out of the way, you can do the effortful, time-consuming thing of very clean line art, of painting and rendering a very beautiful painting. And that time is well spent. But also, while learning, it doesn't hurt to just be like, I'm just creating an image. It is what it is. I'm going to learn what I'm going to learn, throw that full confidence in there. That's not a problem. I'm just saying, if you're doing something like a comic, or you have something like a goal where you're like, I'm creating, this specific landscape and I want it to look a certain way, have a certain feel. If you're doing a final image, then this is going to save you time. So for image creation of any sort, storybook, storyboarding, comic book, what have you, webtoon, this is the process. For, just for fun, just be doodling. That's the difference of doodling and like image creation. Where did I leave off? No, I don't do thumbnails. Yeah, all the situation helps a lot. Yeah, I suck at drawing backgrounds. They're my worst enemy. Then, study backgrounds. Draw from movies. Get a scene from a movie or a comic book and recreate it. And that might mean literally tracing it. Like you screenshot it and put it into, copy paste it into IBIS Paint. Almost certainly it has that ability. I don't know for sure. And literally trace it. Or, which is, I mean, I don't know how helpful that is for like backgrounds per se, because you want to study what is perspective, and the concepts of perspective. But but for anatomy, it's really good, because for anatomy, there's a thing called muscle memory, so to speak. It's like a phrase coined by like a YouTube artist slash storyboard artist, where you have like a figure, and by tracing that anatomy of the figure, it allows you to like figure out and like what your arm kind of needs to do to have something that is akin, let's say, to proper like anatomy. And then that way you can kind of go like, oh, it doesn't feel quite like how it did. So you kind of like build in, because if you do that often enough, you're like, okay, which like I haven't done this. It's just a premise that he's pitched, and I've very much been like, oh yeah, I should do that. But then you're like, oh, okay, then a head, like if you like keep redrawing heads, then you start to realize like, oh, okay, then this kind of shape is generally works. Right. I tend to, even with the concept of thumbnails, to continue with the concept of thumbnails, when I'm drawing anything, I try to be like, it's never that first drawing, or like say when I'm storyboarding, I try to keep it purely to the compositional kind of thumbnail basis. So when I'm trying to figure out like a storyboard, I'm just doing kind of like stick figure-y little guys, or even like bobble-headed guys, because what I'm more concerned with is the composition, and what's like more interesting in terms of that than I am with like the anatomy or what have you. I'm trying to be like, what is setting the correct mood. And then I can go back and go like, oh, well, that mood was achieved, so it works at a storyboarding level. It works. So now I just need to get the anatomy or what have you, like the character accuracy. And that's like the easier thing to do. So the composition, the mood, the like, this image is way more important than like being anatomically correct or having like the best lines. So even when storyboarding, I'm really looking for composition and concept over like the full. So even then, like thumbnails, concept. I really want people to be like, do the exploring. Where are we at? Yeah, was there any questions? So this might be a rough clean, to be like an example, right? It's like a good-ish like final artwork. You might have some color exploration, but it's not exactly the colors. You have like roughed in characters, but they're not detailed. They're not necessarily like on model. The perspective is like pretty good, but like the line art and everything is not exactly perfect, right? Like lines are going over top each other. You can still see construction lines. Construction lines are, you know, what you've almost exclusively seen me do. Construction lines are when you're like, oh, I'm trying to draw a person. And then you get like a lot of this. And it's like, yo, I can barely see the face because of the construction lines, right? All of this like build up stuff in here. Right? Like that's how you should be drawing, where you have construction lines. And then you have a cleanup phase where with a light disc or what have you, you clean up that thing. And now you get to pick and choose what you keep, what you don't keep. But that's like after the fact, right? After you've done all that construction. Because I am definitely not one of those people that's like, I know exactly what the hell this is going to look like from the beginning. I mean, I guess sometimes I am, but those times are the shittiest of times. Like when I know what I'm going to draw, that means I don't care what this looks like, you know? If I know what something's going to look like, what's the fun? I like to be like, hey, I wonder what this is going to look like at the end. And that figuring out is the fun for me. Is the, hey, let's make something cool together. But if people are like, hey, draw that one cool thing you do, and I'm like I don't know, I guess that's me, but I'm not the sort that's, oh yeah, that one thing that everyone knows that I can draw and I drew well that one time. I'm really trying to like grow as a person. No, draw that one thing. All right. I don't know what the hell this was, but that is the the fun, right? That is the growth. I don't really have much questions. You pretty much explained a lot. Maybe the only question I've got is that what is the best art app you'd consider other people other than IBIS? I'm so used to using IBIS, so I've gotten comfortable with it. I think it looks really cool so far. Oh, my guy, presumably, because I'm conceited like that. I don't know if that's what you meant. But app wise, I think Procreate has it's a fan favorite for a lot of reasons, and for at least one reason is it's not subscription based. And it's I think it's not exclusive to iPad. Yeah, I think it's not exclusive to iPad because, but I don't know that. Thank you. But if it's on Android and iPad, that would be great. I kind of don't think that is the case because Apple just be like that and it's annoying. So, but it's like 25 flat dollars and then you have it forever. It's not subscription based, and it's built to be mobile, which is to say, um, like Clip Studio Paint is make you small so that you can see like what I'm referring to. It's got a lot of panels and whatnot. And it is like fully customizable. Like I can like close these little panels. Frankly, Clip Studio Paint is amazing, but it's quite high end for the purposes of like comic book creation, animating, and all this. And it is also subscription based, but you can buy it outright for anywhere from like $100 to $250, depending on the complexity of the program that you want. But like I would never really like suggest. You can also try it for free for 3 months. So if you want to just try it, there's that. I'm not like sponsored by Clip Studio Paint or anything like that. I've just started using it recently. But some of its benefits are like if you move from like a computer to an iPad frequently, then it's good because it's got like a whole cloud-based thing where I can go to like their Clip Studio kind of general thing. Like that was Clip Studio Paint, but this is like Clip Studio. And from here, you can upload anything to like its cloud server. So this says this device up here, but if I go to cloud, that's everything that's been like synced up, right? So all of this is on the cloud, and now I can download it and work on it on my iPad and vice versa. So right now these are synced, and you can say like, you know, this little toggle is to sync it automatically so that, you know, it goes up to the cloud, and then, you know, I can bring it back down and like continue working on it. You're two different files? No, you're not. Yes? Anyways, so that's good. It also has like a really great community, which you can utilize at least to some degree without being like a member. But in terms of like, they've got tips and tricks onto you know, tutorials on how to be an artist, how to draw, how to all these like specifics, you know, how to make a web comic, how to crosshatch, how to use halftones, all these things. Really good kind of community stuff. And in terms of the app itself, you can download all sorts of things. So they've got like, I've downloaded like mostly nothing, but these are like the categories that you can already get, like color patterns, manga material, which might be like, you know, the way the paneling is for the comic book, like different styles of balloons if you want. They've got like built-in balloons, you know, speech bubbles, speed lines and effect lines that you can like get, sound effects, all of these things that, so right now, like nothing's coming up, right? But I can search for it, and most of those assets are free, where the way their marketplace works in essence is if you make something to put onto their marketplace, Clip Studio gives you their version of currency for that free asset, like every day, I think it has like a turnaround of every day. So you just get like sort of in-game currency daily by making free content for them, but you can also like sell it for money, the content that you make. So that might be like the specific properties of a brush, a specific brush you've made, a specific like texture that you've uploaded, a halftone, like many things that I can show you right now actually. So this takes you to like to the marketplace, and you can download all of that for free. But that free is like if you're, you know, subscribed. Some things are you can buy, but majority are free. Like, see, all of these things just say free. Like this turns things into a diamond. Like you just, I guess, make a full shape and it just makes it a diamond. It's just things that users have made. Different 3D assets, because the app has a 3D, you can bring in 3D into the app. So if I go to 3D, they have all these like built-in guys, and the idea being that you bring in the pose, and then you have that as a reference to like literally draw over with your character. So like that becomes a reference. Where the hell did my layers go? And then, where are my layers at? Oh, is it this one? There we go. Yeah, you just use that as a reference to like draw your character. So that's pretty crazy good, because there's other programs that like sort of do this, but not innately within themselves. And when I was saying like you could do muscle memory exercises to kind of build in your dexterity and like kind of knowledge of, is that anatomy working? Like this could be a way to do that muscle memory. So pretty great, but it's and like a lot of the asset aspect of it is free. That kind of looked like crap. I'm like, I don't know what's happening over here. This leg don't look right in the perspective. It's just feeling, I don't know, I guess it's, I mean, it's got to be right, but it just looks wrong to mine eye. That don't look much better. I said don't look, it don't look much better. Look weird. And that's kind of what I find with doing these like 3D reference kind of drawovers, is like they're inherently stiff, right? They're inherently like awkward and stiff because it's not like the pose was made to be in that angle, to be drawn in that angle. And so when you draw it, you're like, why does it look weird? Like, why does that leg look weird? And it's like, yeah, because you would never draw the leg to be like that if you were drawing this angle, because like it's just not like an appealing angle or whatever. But anyways, it's just like a very useful, very like robust program, and it's like it can potentially be a flat fee, but it's actually pretty cheap to subscribe. The only reason they have a subscribe is so that you automatically get the like updates, but like it costs as much to outright buy it as you would pay for like a year subscription, and it still has the buyout option where Adobe and Toon Boom have like, you can't buy them out. They're only subscription based now, which sucks, and which makes me go die in a fire. Also, Adobe has something in its license that says like it owns in perpetuity any artwork you make in Adobe, so it can die in a fire. While Procreate has been like pretty decent for artists, so I tend to back them. Yeah, so the 3D guys, you can actually pose. I didn't show that, but yeah, you can. Will this let me move around anymore? Because I feel like I'm gonna go to you. Yeah, so I can change like the angle and move it around, but I can actually grab like its parts and like repose it. So these points are like the general movement, like think broad strokes, but I can actually go into like specific parts and do like specific rotations in a, but then it's like really mechanical. So it is really like for reference, like it's not meant to be too specific or good at its job, because like this is just a for reference thing with artists. But that's the nice thing about Clip Studio, is it's really made to be for drawing specifically. So even when it has the animation like toolbar or whatever, like if you're using it for animation, it's still for drawing style of animation, right? It's not for like paper cutout, stop motion, 3D animation. Like I can't animate this 3D character. Because the purpose is ultimately this is for drawing, right? It's for making a webcomic by drawing, making a webtoon by drawing, making a comic by drawing, animating by drawing. While Other programs are like, you know, they're being like a jack of all trades type thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then people like sort of sell these poses, like that pose that I had gotten from the asset manager, right? Like it's in Japanese because I've downloaded it, I'm pretty sure. But all of these are like different styled heads. I think I can like swap this body with these heads, but I'm not quite sure how. But I saw somewhere that it worked that way. I just can't remember how to do it. Or maybe I'm thinking of a different program. I'm pretty sure these parts are swappable. Um, like I made this where the guy's like sitting thinking because I did it for like reference for my other character, but then I ultimately hated it. It was because like anyway, it doesn't matter, but I was like, oh, I'm not quite sure about this pose. Okay, I'll do this, but they're because of their proportions and whatnot, it's like do anime, you know, like Clip Studio is a very anime. Like if you like to draw anime, this might be the program for you because it's kind of centered around anime. Like when we went to that asset library, you might have noticed like it pitches itself like pro anime pretty hard, right? Like stamp material, this one person's eye, this brush, which and like you can see all the artwork examples of the brushwork is like a cute anime girl, right? So it's like um, it's pretty anime centric, I would say. It also has, and I don't remember where this is, but um, this is something that you'll like, I'm sure. So these are the ones that are like built in, but it has other things that you can like download that are just like this. So like you can do a frill. Oh wait, it's the same color as the background, so it's not even showing it. And because I'm on the 3D layer, let's do red. It can do a frill. A frill. Notice it's doing my brush, right? So I can literally be like, there's a skirt in like seconds, rather than like imagine doing that. But they've got like, you know, Cuban chains, a braid. I don't know about that. Oh, the braid has like pressure sensitivity. That's wild. Beads. But a zipper, man, zipper's actually crazy. Like I might actually use zipper because like I just like to add zippers to things, but it's like so much stuff built in that's like yeah, that's like that would take me so much time and just like hella effects. Do it. This keeps not changing. How is it? Is it just random rotating? Hmm. Yeah, I know. It do kind of feel like cheating. But like in terms of frills and whatnot, I kind of don't care because like I was saying before, like what makes or doesn't make an image for me, but I would say really for like the greater art community, like at an advanced level, is the composition, right? Composition is what makes or breaks an image. So look up design, like principles of design, the principles of design. They should be like about 12 things. Right? And it's like all of this stuff. and basically treat this as a checklist for when you're doing thumbnails or when you're like trying to make your image better, which should be at the thumbnail phase, right? Try to add as much of this, as much of these concepts as possible into it is really what it is, right? So this is 12. You'd be like, oh, I've got this composition, like here's my thumbnails. And really you should be aiming to like, basically you're inadvertently trying to add these aspects probably without knowing that you are. But consider these being like, they're the names of the intangible things that you've been trying to add before. So you have your thumbnails, and then you go through the principles of design and go, how many of these can I add? And I would say that the more you could have, the better, but you don't necessarily need to have all of them because that might make it like too busy or whatever. So balance might be, you know, one side has more elements or what have you, feels heavier than the other side. Okay, maybe we want that to be balanced. Or maybe you purposefully, like with thought, want it to not be balanced because, you know, maybe you're literally trying to show a power imbalance in the characters on screen, for instance, right? Like, oh, the right side looks more like visually heavy than the left side. That implies strength probably, right? Maybe have your stronger character on that side, or they're bigger because they're the stronger character, you know? So when I say add, I don't mean like this says balance. I don't mean like add balance. It needs to be balanced. It's good when it's balanced. What I mean is it needs to be, or like deliberately not be balanced, right? So a lot of people will do a piece of artwork and then go, it's too balanced. And it's like, what does that even mean? You know, when you do like art at the college level, it tends to be a lot of explaining away bad art. And if you could explain it, then it's good. This is kind of how it works, or at least like how it felt to me when I was in school. And so, I mean, it's not necessarily wrong because like explaining it means that they like understand the theory, like conceptually or potentially. But like they shouldn't have to explain it. It should be like, oh, that's good. But if somebody goes, hey, that's unbalanced, and it's like, yeah, I know, that's on purpose because I'm trying to show a power imbalance with blah, blah, you know. It's kind of like there should be a conversation with art. All art to some degree should be like, you know, a conversation, a narrative. A lot of people would say all art is inherently political because you're inherently picking a side and picking a conversation, or even like putting all that aside, you as a person are going to have a bias and you're going to be implanting that bias, whether consciously or unconsciously, into your work. It's kind of the point of art, and why AI will never be art is because it's the attempt at conversation, right? It's the attempt of, this is my lived experience and my ability to communicate that lived experience to another human. And then that other human can go, I understand or I don't understand, you know, what you're doing here with this artwork, right? It's a conversation. What conversation are you having with the AI? You know, it's like, here's a prompt and the AI goes, here's what some other human said about this. And it's like, is this what you wanted to say or were capable of saying? In both cases, no. Right? Anyways, tangent aside. So yeah, when you look at the principles of design, you want to say, I'm going to do that, or I'm going to purposefully not. This is basically the case for all rules in art. Either it's a rule because like it's a rule and do it because it makes it better that you do, or it's a rule and you're breaking it on purpose because you're trying to communicate something. Because if you just don't do it because you didn't know that it was or wasn't a thing to do, that's not a conversation. That's just ignorance. So, it is or isn't. Or maybe that is a conversation because the point that you didn't do it because you didn't know, like, showcases where you're at and kind of like your journey or whatever. So it's still a conversation. It's still like interesting in a positive mindset. And I won't like explain all of them because that's, at least a week's worth of talking just there. But you try to add or, specifically neglect each one of these things, and it will be additive to your pieces. And then, yeah, so that's what's going to make like, because the principles of design are basically the principles of composition. These are all these are all concepts for composition. And so with that being like the main focus of what is good or not good art, something like you added a ribbon doesn't really matter, right? That's just like a detail that like, thank you for saving me that time is how I see it. But it's not like fully finishing your work or anything. The hell is Cult SD pen? Just a cool textured pen. I mean, it is cool and textured. And then, but yeah, I think I would still suggest, I mean, like if you like drawing anime and you want to do that like really clean, animation or the anime look, then Clip Studio Paint is like literally for that. It's very anime centric. And I like that it has a built-in like social media / marketplace. Because like, as you see, like these are people that have uploaded this and you can like follow those people and like the other works that they've done. You can even like download their workspace, like the orientation of how their work is or the palettes that they use for their comics and whatnot. So I like that it's a very art focused program and also community and marketplace. So it's just like it's a whole like ecosystem for artists. And I really appreciate that. It's nice to get away from Instagram. It's nice to get away from like all this other garbage and just be like, this is a place where artists like go and hang out and produce art and consume each other's art and like read each other's comics and just like exist on a nice little island away from all the garbage. It feels good for all that. That aside, Procreate is a one-time pay app and you have it and it does everything pretty much that Photoshop can do, but in a very like stripped down mobile usable way, especially if you're like working on a tablet. I don't know if you are or aren't, but like Procreate is very specifically for an iPad. But I would say basically any app is good, especially like while learning. You just got to like learn how, it's specific, so you can grow into another thing whenever you want. For me right now, I'm just kind of trying Clip Studio and it's been good. I still have Photoshop, but it's like, when you could actually buy it. Everything has problems. Clip Studio, I haven't really encountered a problem with necessarily like more so it's just, oh, I wonder where this is. And it's just got like a very different way of where that is and how that works than anything I've used in the past. But otherwise, it's only been like happy surprises. Like, ooh, you got feathers? Whoa. It's just been happy surprises like that. It's just been like, oh, you got cool like automatic hatch work. Oh, cool. I can just like draw like texture in. I can just do some cross hatching rather than like doing cross hatching. So it's just been pleasant surprises. Phone. Okay, so you have an iPad. Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like I have an iPad too, but I find it very different to drawing. Like I've always drawn, even drawing on a Cintiq was a learning process over like years. And because I was like, oh, finally, you know, I can work digital, but the way that I know how to work on paper. And then it very much was not like working on paper. And so it felt like relearning. Like you spend so much time learning to draw, and then you get to a place where you're sort of confident in drawing. And then you get an iPad or you get a drawing tablet or a drawing Cintiq, like a drawing monitor. Uh, and then you're like, oh, it's that professional thing that all the professionals use. And then you start to go and you're like, wow, I can't even draw like a head shape. I can't even draw like like, you know, a gesture or the stuff that I was confidently drawing before. And it feels like you're relearning and it hurts your ego. Um, yeah, yeah. So, anyways, there's always going to be a drawing or a learning curve like that. Why does this like struggle to go? Well, maybe you're like a big, like a whole city. Like backgrounds are so easy. I don't know why you have any problems with backgrounds. Done. So that's a uh, whole background done. I would literally never recommend anyone do this unless this is like a distant background or whatever. But you know, if it works, it works. Just rubble. This literally is like a little bit too cheaty. Like this is like a very detailed final scene. Yeah, they have city brushes. This is under like a background, and these are the ones that are built in. That's a literal cloud brush? What? I meant to like paint you with white. Man, I was like painting clouds the other day, but with like a soft brush, and I was like, I might just use this as like a normal brush because it's got like a nice randomizing kind of effect to it. Yeah, I know. I do kind of feel like I'd be cheating though, for real, for real, for real. But anyways, I'm pretty like I was just gonna say I'm pretty like faded out from my ramblings. Oh, there were some things I want to get to um, before I let you go, because we didn't even get into life drawing necessarily, but use that site and just draw from there. I didn't really get into how to figure draw basically, but your teacher's not wrong. You do want to start off with like a gesture, but the gesture isn't necessarily um, it isn't necessarily like just a stick figure, right? Like the point of a gesture is like draw the whole character, but like draw them as quickly as possible and like not really consider like don't really be considering like anatomy necessarily. Just be trying to get it to a point where say all you had time for was the gesture, right? And you had to leave and do another gesture or whatever, that you could come back and understand what you're looking at to go, okay, let me finish it. right? That's the aim of a gesture, where it's like, oh, it's pretty good, and I understand, like, I understand what's happening here, to the point that I could come back to it and like finish it up. So then you go, okay, well, it's like, you want to communicate, at least like for yourself, like in a sort of note-taking way, what's happening here, in the way that, like, oh, I know what angle this is, and I know what angle this is. So you really want to be like, okay, I'm like drawing a guy, but I want to make sure that I know, you know, the shoulders or clavicle or what have you are in this kind of angle or orientation, and the hips are in this orientation, because your hips and shoulders tend to be in contradiction to each other, right? Almost never, unless like with deliberate effort, is a person standing like this, right? Like with your shoulders perfectly aligned to your hips. It's like almost never the case. Usually people like kind of lean one way or another, at least like slightly, to like kind of like alleviate one leg. But communicatively, like you want to like that's where you want to get to, is a gesture where you're like, you know, it's not necessarily a line. It's like, don't ever lift up your pen, basically, and just like scribble and be going all over the place when you're looking at the person. Like if you find that while you're doing the gesture that you like, you're drawing and you're like, okay, oh, but the ear, oh, that ear though, and then the drawing's done, or the timing is done for the pose, and like all you have is like, that's what you're trying to avoid. Never be stuck on a place, right? If you find that, oh, I'm like, oh, what's this? I find that with like legs or whatnot, I'll be like drawing, and then I'll be like, okay, but then there's like a muscle, and then there's the patella, and then the drawing's done. And I'm like, damn it. So whenever I find that I start to fixate on any one thing, I go, stop it, and then you know, get some help, and then you like move on to something else. So you go, like, okay, we're drawing, like even this, I'm already like, oh, but the head shape, I'm trying to draw the head shape. No, like none of that. Just it's all vibes. It's all vibes, and just be drawing, right? Just keep going and try to communicate like as much as possible. And because I probably like, I won't be able to tell you, like there's just too much about drawing that like I would need to get into, that I don't have time to get into. Um, and so like, I mean, like if you wanted to, but I'm not gonna like push this on you, but for like anyone else who like encounters this video, my Patreon goes into all the details about everything I've hinted at, including how to make a rigged character in Harmony, you know, like how to animate, how to storyboard, backgrounds, how to do perspective. That's also where the stages of image creation is explained, you know, like doing thumbnails and rough to rough clean, and composition, perspective, character design, how to create an interesting character, how to make expressions, how to you know, design them, how to do rotations, art theory, which is how to make, you know, what are the very, very basics of what is appealing art. And I think my tiers are like, well, actually for this thing, you know, for these presentations, it's like $5 a month. And then basically you can, you know, get in there, download all of these and get out for $5. Yeah. But for $15, it's like this sort of situation with you, where it's like someone can submit art and then I can review it with/for them. So that's how my Patreon works. If you know, any of these delightful people are interested. But beyond that, there's drawbox.com, which is completely free, is my understanding. But it's basically like an actual class structure of like how to learn to draw from zero. So it starts with pretty much what I was like getting in about with like doing exercises to get that muscle work in for clean lines and circles and whatnot. You know, like lessons like contour lines, construction lines, you know, shapes and perspective, and then will eventually turn into, because this is still just all lesson 2, right? So like early day stuff. Oh, this is people's submissions of homework. This isn't like the classwork itself. Lessons. Like lesson 0 is like, you know, what materials to use even. This all feels very, you know, reading, but they're all set up like podcasts and videos. So you don't necessarily need to read all of this. But like, you know, still good to do. And it's, this is a lot wordier than I'd like it to be, but it is free. If I'm wrong, that's gonna suck. I think it's just like donation based. But basically it starts with drawing a box, which I don't think I ever got to because I skipped off to life drawings. But you want to be drawing boxes. That's why it's called Draw Box. It's a very like, that's where everyone should be starting. Yeah, it gets into like recommended tools, which can be like anything, but he just kind of like talks about what's easier to use as a beginner, what's harder to use as a beginner, recommended tools to start with, that sort of thing. Lines, how to use your arm, which is like exactly what I was talking about, but with like visuals and just kind of like set up better than what, you know, my janky butt can show in a quick session. Lines homework, which is like I think literally what I was getting into. But eventually, and kind of primarily, he will talk about doing like box studies or exercises, which is something I was going to get into with this. But basically, you just draw a lot of, and when I say boxes, I mean like 3-dimensional cubes. I don't mean like 2D, two-dimensional squares, because it's going to segue into more advanced drawing things. So you want to be like filling a page with cubes at like every angle. Every perspective. Right? And like fill a page with it. And if you want to get, if like, you know, sort of conceptualizing what angle to draw, you know, like it's too much to just like draw them random, then this will also really help with like your background, like how to draw backgrounds, because partially this segues into how to do backgrounds, but partially this segues into even like how to do anatomy. So you could do like a perspective grid where you do big circle, like big line, center. This is like a sort of center perspective line and a center perspective line. Get out of here. Right, and then if this is your topmost angle, then you're going to have degrees of lesser than, right? So you're going to have like half, right? It's like half this and half this straight line, right? Half, like make a globe basically. And the same thing going out, you're going to go half. then half the half, half the half, half, half the half, half the half, half the half. So this is like a really intense kind of fisheye lens, let's say, if you're doing, if you're treating this to be a whole perspective. But the reason we would like to do that is to be a basis for what your world looks like. So you'd have a square that's like straight on. And then as you go up, you start to see more of the bottom side of the square. And you can actually math that out if you want to, because these lines correspond. So if you did like this, right, see how it kind of corresponds to being the same placement to these guidelines. So you'd have a square that's here, but then you would see a bit of its butt. And because the way I think of this is a matter of proportion. And so in this profile view, we saw nothing of its sides. So in the one just up, you would see a very tiny amount of the bottom because we're starting to look up, right? So in this way, you can do the whole draw a box thing, but you have like a grid to fill out rather than just doing random boxes. So it's kind of more methodical in that you're like, what is every possible way that I could draw a box literally, rather than, I think I've done a lot of boxes, but in reality, like I was just doing in the example, in reality, you're really just doing like 3 kinds, but you're just kind of flipping them back and forth. Or you could be like extremely methodical with it, like I was saying, where you literally draw like where the lines would need to be, and then follow those out. So like you literally draw a box for like each of these sections, but usually you do it like just for the grid that they're on. And so if this just has like a tiny portion here, we have none. By the time we get to the top, it's like almost all bottom and like just a little bit of the top, right? This is what I mean by like proportion, because like I can't here, like at the second box from the top, start to see more bottom than I did above it. That would ruin the whole perspective concept, because if we're seeing a lot of the bottom here, and that's like the extreme, that's the uppermost box, then how is that the case here, right? Like that's ultimately what perspective sort of is a degree of proportionality. And the reason why we have grids and like horizon lines and vanishing points is just to keep all of that in mind. So if it's like, oh, we know this is, a vanishing point that everything is vanishing towards, then the extreme is here, and there can only be lesser degrees of that until that point, right? That's all perspective really is like it's proportion, it's proportionality. And so you just have to keep things in proportion. So if you have, like if this is, so that's why like you really only need a horizon line. You don't really need to do the whole thing of like, well, there's a vanishing point like 5 imaginary pages off the left of my artwork. And it's like, what am I gonna tape all this pages together just to have construction lines that like no one knows about? It's just the proportion. And so if you have a horizon line and that's like your ground. Come on. And that's your ground. and I was to draw like a cylinder or what have you here, like a disc, and I'm showing this much of the bottom, right? It doesn't matter how much of the bottom I'm necessarily showing. It's the only object in the image except for the horizon line. So the, like, however I draw it is correct. The only time it starts to become wrong is when there's more objects and when those objects don't like correspond to the same proportionality of everything else in the image. So if I like, but it's still not necessarily wrong. Oh, you'll see what I mean. Like if I draw now another cylinder here, but you see so much more of the bottom. If what I'm trying to communicate with this is that they're the same like orientation, they're like one isn't rotated away from us. Like if you saw this and I went, it's the same image, you'd be like, no, it isn't. Like this one is clearly tipped away, you know, and this one's like more like flat to the perspective, right? But it's not necessarily wrong. It's just like this is tipped away and this is like more flat to the perspective. But like it's still the perspective. It's just like know what you're communicating here. But if I was trying to say they are angled, or I wanted them to be angled the same, right? I'm only showing this much of the bottom. So anything under here needs to be less than this. I don't have to have like, oh, it's a circle, and the way to interpret a circle is to make it like inside of a box. It would be this way, inside of a box, so that I can find its vanishing points in a 3-point. You know, it's like just draw like no one looking at your image is it either works or it doesn't. And the only way a viewer will understand or like understand or misunderstand a perspective and kind of call it out for being wrong is proportionality, because like you've created this fake universe, and so you just have to adhere to your own rules, and the rules are like what you show it to be. So if you have this much of a bottom of something, and like the horizon line is here, so then anything underneath it needs to be less. Proportionally, probably, to the thing. So like this is already like correct perspective, right? It just feels correct. And that's like all you need. You don't need it to be like exactly correct, because who's gonna break out the ruler and compass on Instagram to be like, actually, this needed to be a little bit more. No one's doing that. They either like the image because of its composition or its emotional attachment or its, you know, how hot the curves of these cylinders are or what have you. That's what's going to engage the audience more, because that it's just what humans like are into, you know. Even another artist will probably go, I like it, or like not, or like at the very most detail oriented of other people in the field of view, which would, you know, like other artists would go, wow, they went to the effort of making it very accurate perspective. Like that's about as deep as it gets, where it's like in the same industry of the same interest, even they are saying, wow, they really spent the time. I would never, you know? So, and that's just to say, like, do you want to impress colleagues, or do you want to impress like people by and large? Do you want to spend the time, right? That's all it is. But perspective is just this. It's just, you have a horizon line, and that's the basis or whatever metric of what is perspective, and everything else is like proportionality. Is it above or below the horizon line? If it's below the horizon line, then you're going to see the top of it. If it's above the horizon line, you're going to see the bottom of it. And whatever you, like, let's say, start to draw or end up drawing already in that, then everything else needs to be proportional to that. So because I already have this top and this bottom, I know that anything I draw, if it's going to be the same orientation, it needs to be somewhat of an in-between. Yeah, I'm going to see, well, one of, I guess it could be almost flat, but it's above the horizon line. So I'm going to still see a bit of the bottom. So this should still be a bit curved. Right? It can be just that simple. And actually, I have like a better example of it in my course, wherever the hell that is. That's what, and this was the final image, by the way, of that background. So this is the example of that. If this is the horizon line, in this case, it would be like there's sort of two horizon lines, or there's two vanishing points. Then if they're oriented the same, the further up we go, the more of the bottom we see. The further down we go, the more of the top we see. And the same is true for left and right if you want to do like really advanced kind of fisheye lens perspectives and or three-point perspective, right? Because two-point perspective is like sort of like an unrealistic perspective, because it means, and also it's like incredibly hard to do, because you're going to have like, this is your drawing. Like if you're doing a landscape with buildings, let's say, the vanishing points are like incredibly far away realistically, right? So if you had like buildings and you were trying to find out like, hey, where's the vanishing point to this? It's like way the hell off your page. And for things the other way, it's like way the hell off the page to find out that like this little angle. To find out this little angle, right? That's like in reality how a two-point perspective works. But if you're doing something for a building, you have three-point perspective, which is to say you have your horizon line, but you have, and then you've got your 1 and 2 point perspective. But then you've got a third, which makes it do this, right? Because when things get really tall, you get this like warp effect where they get smaller at the top. Right? Like that's what 3-point is. 1 point is where it all goes to 1 point. Actually, it is in here, isn't it? Or it's in my PowerPoint. It's in the PowerPoint. But yeah, 1 point is like, you know, you might have looking down like a corridor is like 1 point. Right, and it should go to 1 point, hence the name. And on that 1 point is the horizon line. So then you have like a corridor, might be like a door or something at the end. That's 1 point. 2 point is there's a horizon line, and usually the 2 points are like way the hell off of screen. 3 point, the third point is like somewhere in the sky for like tall buildings. But by and large, just this kind of proportionality is like more than enough, unless you're literally doing landscapes and the purpose is like a detail-oriented craziness. Yeah, fisheye lens. So another thing actually about Clip Studio Paint is it's got like rulers, and they establish like they're literally guides in a way. But one is it perspective ruler? So a lot of them are actually like perspective, right? Like this one, literally perspective ruler. And what happens is I can change these points, and my lines, when I draw them, correspond to that. So like they literally like get stuck to the line so that it only ever does the perspective that like is established by way of these lines. I don't think I've like set this up right because again, like I'm still just like figuring this program out. But it has its own fisheye lens thing built in. I forget where it is actually. But that's how I figured out the fisheye lens of the of this, because like the fisheye lens here is like, whoop, interesting. In order to guide the eye um, of the character to like what he's looking at, and also bring us to the character, because most at least like westernized concepts of like reading images is that we start like left to right and top down, and so we start here, and knowing that, then it's like, oh, okay, but then perspective and everything like brings us to the boy, and then the boy brings us back to what he's looking at. So like one way of analyzing kind of appeal for an image is the fact that um like how much time our eyes linger on the image, let's say, which is why you hear about like the golden ratio, right? Because the golden ratio makes you do this, which really just like keeps you there, which is like, oh, why is this image like so good? It like keeps you there by way of its composition. Like you start here, and then like, oh, it's got like the big part, but then you get tighter, 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 and then like you end up on a third, um, which again is like interesting, but it keeps you in the image. But yeah, it has its own fisheye lens guide, and then just like the other guides, like your line kind of like the lines you try to draw get stuck to the guidelines, unless you don't want it to, you can like turn that off. But um, yeah, so it creates like a giant sphere, which would be like the lens through which everything like bends. Where did I have fisheye lens? I wanted to try fisheye lens perspective before, but I feel like I might accidentally screw it up, so I'm scared to mess it up, and then it just ends up looking terrible. I like the perspective for that, though. It looks really cool, like the pointing towards the sky. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, fisheye lens was also something that I haven't fiddled with before, but like I said, like basically you just got to do it. You know, like you were saying, you wanted to do it, you tried it, didn't work out. It's good that you tried, because the whole point is, you know, try, learn from it, and then try again. If it's not working, you know, do more research, find more reference, do more research, like draw from existing work, from real life as much as possible, because that's how you learn. You know, don't just do, because then it's just like a hope and a prayer. Like it's unlikely to work, because like why would it? Basically, it's just like if it did work, it's a miracle. because like based on why did it work? Find reference and like, you know, that way you're learning from other people who have already learned. We've had like thousands of years of collective human experience on drawing and art creation. Why are you trying to reinvent it? You know, I mean, like I understand it because I probably did the same thing. Uh, but as a art educator, it subsequently becomes surprising that I had also fallen into this trap. But everyone is like, why? Like, if I have to use reference, then I'm a bad artist. It's like we've had thousands of like we know this collectively as a civilization. We have learned how to do perspective. We have learned how to do a fisheye lens. We have learned how to do anatomy and how to learn to do anatomy and how to do it quickly. Why do we, and I include myself, think that we should just intrinsically be good at a skill? You know, we don't do that for like cutting a tree, you know, like for logging. We don't go, I should just intrinsically know how to use a chainsaw. Why do you think that? You know, but it's so strange that that's what we do for art. And then if we don't have that, we're somehow bad or flawed or something. Use reference. I don't know where people get the idea that they're just going to like learn it through like, you know, vibes. Look up reference, look up how other professionals have done that thing, and then you will learn how to do that thing. It's crazy how that works. But most people would just go like, no, I need to just do it. Probably because what we see is the finished work of accomplished artists being thrown at us. And so we have the feeling that we should also be at that level of doing like what other professional, accomplished, experienced artists do in their like, you know, later years of being artists. And we hold ourselves to that level. But it's like, you know, you will get there by doing the exact same thing that they did, which was following the artists of their time, you know. So if you know, if there's artists that you like, you know, copy their work, mimic their work for educational purposes. You understand, right? Like, don't be like, this is my work. Like, copy, like literally copy, literally trace their work, but to learn from them, right? So if you have other artists that you like, copy them, trace them, find out what artists they learned from, and then copy them, trace them, you know, learn why they did the things they did, get their books, you know, read their books. Yeah. And then drawbox.com, it's free, and it's literally a whole like class series of how to draw all the way from like, you know, fill a page with lines. What superimposed lines do you mean? What do you mean by superimposed? On top of each other? Oh. Interesting. But anyways, yeah, it goes from like how to get the muscle memory and strength of straight lines and circles and like just the line confidence that you're looking for all the way to like foreshortening and anatomy and everything. It's a full thing on like drawing specifically. Join my Patreon because that does everything about how to get into the animation industry, basically from art theory all the way to like rigging a character puppet. And you use the Line of Action app for figure drawing, also free. I use this myself. I never actually like got into it, but let's say like set it to a half hour start, and then it just gives you like a bunch of images set to, right now I have it set to class time, so it's going to do 30-second intervals to start. It said for how many, I think like for 5 poses, and then it's going to turn into like 1-minute poses, and then 2-minute poses, and then it maxes out at 5 minutes. So my understanding is that that time frame for poses is really like meant for like animation, but I would suggest that to be for all artists because it's like a practice thing, right? So getting faster at drawing just means that you're more efficient at like the craft of art, right? And worst case scenario, it pings whenever it's about to change. Worst case scenario, you know, it's a warm up of let me get a refresher on anatomy. Let me like quickly kind of like open up and do gestural drawings and some quick drawings. You know, it's not meant to be for reference. It's meant to be practice. I do want to show some drawings to you if you don't mind. There was one I didn't really look at too much for reference, only very few. I don't know how you could send me a drawing is the thing. I was thinking about this earlier where I was like, I don't know if YouTube has a way to send me stuff. But yeah, you can absolutely, I mean, like, I'm down with the idea. I'm just, technically speaking, I don't know how to get you to get me things. Too much reference, only very few gets brief idea, but everything else was just me. I did the hands on the spot and fixed the arm because I drew a few days ago. Yeah, I would suggest, just because like we're running into 3 hours now, and I was trying to keep this short, if anything, like introductory, and like I plan to be doing this more often. So text, I mean, I'll probably just send you my email and then you can email it to me, is what I'm thinking. Yeah. But I'll send you my email and then you can email it to me, and then I'll like tomorrow, I guess, potentially. Unless we are, unless this becomes like a weekly thing. I don't know how I feel. Yeah, so I'll send you my email and then you can email it to me. And I'll do like a review of it, like tentatively tomorrow, but I'll see how I feel for doing like daily streams of this. And then I'll do like a live like review of it if you're you know, okay with that. I'll do like a draw over because that's what I would do for all my students, and what the point of the Patreon actually is send in artwork and we'll see what we can do to, you know, fix whatever aspect of it. It'd be a lot more cool. It'd be a lot more applicable than being like, let me throw every art theory concept at you all at once, you know. But yeah, for your sake and learning, like, do life drawing every day, or like as often as possible, and do the box studies to explain kind of like going forward with the box studies. The reason why that website and myself included are like, you know, do these perspective boxes is because then when you do anatomy, let me just like grab this guy. Like you start with boxes, which helps you like be able to conceptualize and visualize and rotate in your own head like something conceptual like a box. But then you can take that concept of the box and realize that that's how you can simplify the human figure and understand the human figure. So like the reasoning for a box is that it's like the most primitive shape, like the most basic shape. But as a result, it can be used to conceptualize anything in its rotation, right? So for instance, the human head. So you can have a box which is like somewhat a human head, or like, I guess a sphere is the actual most primitive shape, but like harder to conceptualize in rotation, right? So as a box, it's easier to understand like which way is front, which way is side, which way is top, and all this. So if we think of this as being like the cranium, which is like an egg-like sphere, and then we add like another egg-like sphere, which is to be the mandible, right? Then you have a head, like a human head. And so this is now like the bone structure, let's say, the base structure of a human head, and now you can rotate that conceptually. This is the whole point of draw a box in every angle, because if you can draw a box in any angle, you can like, that's stage one of learning to draw. It's not stage one, it's more like stage, I don't know, 7, but like stage one of learning to draw, and then you can use that understanding to break down and simplify anatomy, so that you can like conceptualize anything and rotate anything. Because if this is the human head rotated, and you can rotate a cube at any angle, then you can rotate a human head at any angle. Right? And because this is here, this is where ears go. We know that the center is like the nose. So like this is where the nose be, the center of the top is where the eyes be, or at least like the eye sockets. You know, the lummus head bisects the side of the head with these like ovals, which creates the cheekbone areas. The Loomis head, if you're familiar with like, what is Loomis's first name? But anyways, Loomis is a famous artist, writes a bunch of, you know, how to draw humans anatomy stuff. But it's like cranium, and then the front of the face, and then these like bisecting, like you're literally cutting into the shape of the head with this, which creates like the cheekbone areas, and where the jaw connects to, and also the center of the side of the head is like the ears, the middle is like the ear hole, this sort of thing. It's like a very famous methodology for drawing humans. But yeah, if you can draw a box, then you can draw human anatomy. And then like how we do the drawovers, like the muscle memory thing is like, you know, you can draw people, but the idea is to simplify them into shapes so that you can take this concept, this like simplification, and go, oh, okay, if I just like simplify these parts, then I can take this to draw like other people, because now I know at least like this angle. Right? And you work into your hand and in your movements these little gestures, let's say, where you're like, oh, if I just like kind of do that, it just be like good anatomy. Also, like, you know, there was nothing here visibly, but like I know that's how a knee work, but that's like experience. That's actually doing anatomy studies. Right? But that's like the muscle memory exercise. What's really good, like a even more beneficial thing to do, is taking that box concept and really like doing it, because what's helpful with that box study is understanding at what point is the side of the head. right? Does that make sense? Like at what point is the side of the head? Because when people draw a face or whatever, they just draw a face. Like I don't think they really conceptualize like they're just like it's a nose and I want him to look down, but like I don't know what that means. I just need him to look down, but I don't know what that means. And they're sort of just like putting parts like on, right? Like that whole muscle memory exercise, you might get something like this. And then like if for the sake of muscle memory, like sure, that's fine. Like it's like a, you know, it services what we need it to be. It's not like a bad drawing necessarily. But for the actual understanding of anatomy so that we can now use this for other things is like you want to understand at what point is the top of the head. At what point are we seeing the top of the head, or should we be seeing that at the top of the head? What is that change that we're having? When is the side of the head? All of these things. So like if you break it down and go, okay, well, like we definitely like face ends here, definitely. Bottom of the head definitely ends here. You know, we got the jaw go up. Top of the head is like usually where the hairline is, and then like top, back, in, right? And then at what point is the side of the face the side of the face? Actually, I don't even think this is the angle. It's more like this, like to go with his eyebrows, right? And then like at what point would the side of his head be? I'm gonna go like it's here, but we got this cut in because of the like Loomis cut in of the side of the head. Cranium, middle, right? This analysis is a lot more helpful to an artist than like literally just being, oh, there's a line and there's like some squiggles that make hair and there's a line for eyebrows. Who cares, right? The fundamental structure is a lot more important because it lets you rebuild because you understand its building blocks, right? You understand like this is what builds a character. And because it's akin to being a box, very similar to a box, then you can now transplant this to another angle, like whatever you need it to be. So it's like functional. And that's the case with the whole human body, right? Like the upper body can be thought of as being a box, like the torso. When we do the box studies, it's really like major masses and specifically bone structure. So like the torso, but more specifically the rib cage, is like an egg shape. That's like big at the top and goes down, right? There's the center line, which is your sternum, your ribs, the clavicle, which is a whole like thing that sits at the top of your because the clavicle is attached to your shoulder bones, like the scapula on the back. But if we think of this as like a box, it also helps with shading because you should be doing shading as though it is planes based, you know. So it's like, okay, well, I don't think we see any of like the left side of him, his right side, but we do see a little bit of this right side. So, okay, so we get a plane there, and that's where a shadow might be, you know, in a very generic sense. And his shoulders go like, remember how I was saying there's a counterbalance to hips and shoulders? So you get like a bit of a tip down at the top and you get this counter at the bottom. Trying those hips like so high. But you get a little bit of the side. And because I like with that analysis of, oh, we see a bit of the side, then like once you get deeper into anatomy, you can go, well, I know you've got like the serrated muscles that interlock here at the side, and those are really like a side muscle, then we should be seeing a bit of that because we're seeing the side of his torso, and we should not really be seeing them here because that would be wrong. Like that's the wrong like perspective. So if I start to be like, oh, we get all these like serrated muscles like showing on this side, people are gonna look at that. You would look at that and go, it looks wrong, but I don't really know why it's wrong. It's because the perspective is wrong of the body. We are not seeing this side of his torso. So why would we be seeing muscles that are on the side of his body, right? That sort of thing. The same thing with the head anatomy. It's like if you were to be trying to depict this looking down like side head, but then we'd get an ear and be like, why are we seeing an ear, right? Or why are we seeing so much of this far eye when like it's so tilted, right? That sort of thing. But now that you have this basis, this structure, then you can like put the anatomical features of muscle and ears and eyes and all of this thing onto that structure, and it's going to feel like much more structured and anatomically correct than if you were to just be like kind of arbitrarily doing. And this is why we say like, so when people say like we don't like anime, it's not that people don't like anime, it's that anime has become synonymous with this whole concept of like, oh, do you want to draw sexy eyes? Well, then do I have a tutorial for you? If you just put 3 lines together like this, what the hell does that mean? That means nothing. That means nothing. What is the anatomy of the eye? How does that fit into a skull? What is the eye socket? What is the angle? What is the structure behind it, right? This is like the truth of what people mean when they say like we don't like anime. It's because it's not that they don't like anime, because ultimately that means like they're pretty pictures from Japan, right? Why would somebody hate that? They don't. It's become synonymous with artists who did not learn this, who did not learn life drawing, who did not learn drawing, so to speak, right? They learned anime exclusively. They jumped the gun and learned how to put 3 lines together in an eye shape. But like, can they draw a different eye? No. Can they draw a different kind of character? No. They only learned anime. An artist is somebody who can draw any kind of style at their will, and they choose to draw anime because they like anime. But if they had to draw like, Goofy, they can draw Goofy. If they had to draw like the Lion King, they can draw the Lion King. If they had to draw, I don't know, like the Arcane style, they could do the Arcane style. Or they have their own thing that's like a combination of everything, right? It's because like you should have that capability because you understand the fundamental structure that then you can do whatever the hell you want with it. And if that be anime, that's fine. But if I was to like, I wanted to draw this, but I had no idea about this, and I was just like drawing, like, I think the thing with anime is, yeah, it looks great if they're one of 3 angles, But if they were a very specific angle that needed to be done, yeah, we just don't draw them in that angle because they don't look good in that angle. That's bad. That's a bad art style. A good art style is one that can like communicate a lot more, like Dan. That's my favorite director, but he's not the director of that studio anymore. See, even I'm like analyzing this wrong because you just got like a tiny little eye socket over here and then like more eye socket. Right? Like you're just going to get a lot more from this kind of analysis, and that's what I'm going for. And there's another thing with light drawing that you know, we'll get to if we get to it, but it's called Landmarks. It's just like, it's just understanding what we're looking at. Is it the front? Is it the side? And these landmarks are basically always bone protrusions that let us understand um, what we're looking at, what angle of things we're looking at. Wait, I made my thing disappear. It's yeah. It's the anime of the season, I would say. Science Saru is like a so I'm the sort of anime enjoyer that watches anime that doesn't look like cliche anime. Like if you were to look at it, you wouldn't necessarily think it's anime. Um, yeah, it's good stuff. You've not seen anything from it? I was also pretty skeptical, but then I saw that it was my favorite studio, and I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But the director left this like a while ago. Totally blind review. I just want like the opening. Also, the opening was like the craziest, you know, like the biggest thing of the time. Clips. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, this was like the biggest song last year. I mean, like, name me another anime that goes this hard. It's just fun, but also emotional and not in a you know, cliche. Oh, the girl fell over and all her clothes fell off. Oh no. Um, it's yeah, it's just good art and good story and groundbreaking stuff. It doesn't go until like episode 7 that it goes really crazy. Delicious in Dungeon. Oshi no Ko, I remember hearing about, but I haven't watched. But yeah, Delicious in Dungeon is a crazy good one as well. Oh, it's the one that that one guy has like a million things in his room of. Yeah, I've not watched any of this. That's literally all I know about this. There's one guy who uh I'm pretty sure this is the one. Yeah, Kaguya. Yeah. Um House guy. No, I thought this was the one, but there's a guy who covered literally every inch of his house in photos of like life-size printouts of her. He had like 20 printers going 24 hours or something to like cover it. Because he's like, she's best girl, and I'm like, I gotta stay away from that. Hmm, hmm, hmm. I thought her name would be like, I thought her name was Kaguya. I would assume based on this. Is this like an idol show? Like she's an idol? Yep, 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 yep. Hmm, hmm, hmm. Interesting, interesting. I'll have to check that out if it's like I like watching people, or like at least trying people's favorite thing, because that's if it's somebody's favorite thing, then like it's gotta have at least like something going for it. Cool, cool. I like that. Yeah, because like a lot of things are pretty like basic and shallow, and then I'm like, or slow or badly animated. My Dress Up Darling is also super good. Uh, Surprisingly, it feels like it would be like really basic shallow stuff, but it's like surprisingly good and really well animated. It just did its second season, and they got puppets now, so that's good. I like anything that just be like, be experimental, try some fun stuff or whatever, and that's why I really like Saru. They're all about breaking conventions. Yeah, 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 yeah. No, it's extremely cute. It's extremely cute because the whole point is like girl cosplayer that falls in love with like guy who makes outfits, I guess. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's so good. We're still watching it because it's obviously like so ongoing, but the animation for it is like so cute, and the end theme for it is like so like surprisingly cute. I have it on Spotify now because it's just like them going, "Hey, what's an art style?" and then just doing that for for a whole thing. That's a very cute art style and just like aesthetic, because they're doing that whole like kind of 90s flashback, like hyper pink. I like their whole like kind of wobbly line that they got is like so cute. This whole like manga cutouts are cute. You could only really have this as like an end theme or a music video or something, because like a show doing this would be so time consuming. To do colored line like this, where so like to have a color palette is time consuming, because that is like the reason why a lot of shows do the cell shading look that they do is for like cost efficiency, right? Like time efficiency. And so the reason why we do cell shading where it's like two tone, you have the character, you have their base color, and then you have like one color that equals a shadow for that color, right? So like skin has a specific color for a shadow, and then like hair has a specific color for a shadow. Uh, Even like what most artists will do, just because it's time saving, is like, oh, we're gonna do like 50% opacity blue, and that's just gonna be shadow for everything. It doesn't matter if it's skin or whatever, for everything. And then they're like, oh, I kind of look crap. I don't know why I look crap. I kind of look crap. And it's because like that's not how shadows behave, right? A shadow on skin is gonna be different than like shadow on like fur, because the fur is going to like be have like a darker shadow because it's like um like like capturing light and kind of inability to capture light, let's say. So it's gonna have darker shadows. And so hair could like be shinier and be like more like all of these things. It needs to behave differently. And colored line is sort of like doing something like that, where it's just like an added level of difficulty. You need a specific line color for each specific color. Um, so it's like like there's this specific pink for where there's pink, but then there's like a specific blue for where there's blue. Luckily they're at least not doing like, oh, but it's the shadowed part of the line, which would be like you're just fully rendering it at that point. So they tend to avoid like artists will tend to avoid doing that. That's why you only see this like in the ending and not so much in the show, where it would be too crazy. You know, at least here it's like all one color, you know, this kind of like dark purple. Yeah, it's just very pretty. This could be like their opening. It was so catchy. Anyways, yeah, good show. Kind of the only thing I'm watching except for that one trash anime. Okay, anyways, I will send you my email and then you can get you know, send me some stuff. And then I want to say like let's do like next Wednesday for another stream. Just cuz like I could potentially do tomorrow, but I kind of want to keep it spread out for the sake of like I guess so that like I don't get wiped and you don't get wiped, but also that way I could potentially like, you know, there's time to like get and give projects, you know, so I could be like, hey, do a bunch of work, I get a bunch of work, you know, I give you notes and then so on and so forth. So it's not like here's some notes and then the next day it's like, you know, did you have time to work on them? No. And it's like that's pretty understandable. And that way, yeah. Oh, okay, cool. Makes sense. Or yeah, yeah, yeah. Or what day would be good? Weekend, I guess. Well, I guess we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out like off stream whenever you're free. Yeah. Yeah, so we'll like communicate or whatever, email, and then we'll figure it out whenever you're free. And we'll do this some more. Okay. So yeah, I'm in for now. Thanks for hanging. I hope that was helpful. And I'll see you like I guess next weekend. Yeah. You're welcome. Yeah, I hope it was helpful. Great. Okay. So I'm gonna end now. Bye. I'll see everyone when I see everyone, but like next weekend seems like the time to do. Okay.